You either is or you ain't. You do or you don't. You can or you can't. Or you will or you won't. Either way, baby, a good man, well, he's hard to find. Welcome to the One More for the Good Guys podcast, where good guys gather to shed light on the good life, the people, and the good things that make it that way. I'm Mike McGill with my co-host, Jamie Akins. Now, raise your glass, lend us your ear, and let's have one more for the good guys. You either is or you ain't. You do or you don't. You can or you can't. Or you will or you won't. Either way, baby, a good man, well, he's hard to find. On today's guest episode, we have our friend and soon-to-be yours, Mr. Phil Fuson. Morristown native, intergalactic spaceman, time traveler, and musical virtuoso. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Phil Fuson. Now, sorry. Well, thanks for coming out.
Is this thing rolling? Is it live?
Oh, yeah. Well, and it's just, man.
I hadn't signed a release or anything.
No, you don't need to.
You say that now?
Fuck it. Take a chance. Columbus did. Look how good it worked out for him.
Yeah, but look at the rest of us. Look at how it worked out for the Indians. Come on, man.
Oh, no, it's just a conversation. I mean, I've known you for quite some time. Our paths crossed. First time I ever heard of you was through a kid named Justin Nix.
Mm-hmm.
And he had worked down at the Time Warp.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess had befriended you, and he was pretty young back then.
Oh yeah, he turned out to be a fine bass player.
He did, and a fine young man as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think the world of Justin.
Where is he these days?
Who cares?
Okay.
You know,
well, I mean, still.
I've said all the nice things I'm going to say about him.
Well, that's, yeah.
No, he's, now the last account, I talked to him we've traded a few texts here and there, but he was working with, for Chris Ford down at Sweet Peas.
Oh, okay.
And was like his main guy down at the, Downtown Dive.
Okay.
And he's got two boys, and
he was becoming a parent around that time.
Yeah, and I met the second son when he was just a baby. But I've known his first child since his birth as well, because he and Jason Hanna were playing together in Dixie Ghost.
Mm-hmm.
And Justin got country bass and didn't get bored with it, you know, like about timing and the nuances. Because everybody thinks it's so easy and there's nothing to do but TikTok, flip-flop, boom, boom.
Man, you're going to have a lot of editing to do.
No.
We can go on and on about.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I mean,
But Justin got it, and he worked with me a bunch.
Well, what I was going to say is like,
gigs.
Man, the Time Warp period is one of my favorite musical periods in my life because, you know, we just finished this memorial for Kim Weber that we did out at the Open Chord, and a lot of folks showed up, but Kim had been the person that booked at the Sutler in Nashville. And
where was that at down there?
Oh, I think it was out on either 8th or 12th. I can't recall, because my lost weekend in Nashville was a truly lost weekend.
Right.
But that's where she met all these folks that she wound up being able to bring to the Time Warp.
Okay.
And sadly, not enough people came to the Time Warp. But I mean,
it's a really unique place.
But here are some of the people that came through, that played through my PA.
And I say that because I didn't go there enough either.
among the people that played through my PA, Peter Case, Dave Olney. There were 2 trips that were magic for me. Justin Towns Earl and Jubal Young.
Oh, there you go.
Jubal being Steve's youngster. That we still stay in trade barbs on the Facebook. Elizabeth Cook, before she became the apple of David Letterman's eye.
Right.
You know, those are just some of the
She's still
folks.
singing about Chevettes and not El Camino.
I got nothing, but
Yeah.
I'm
So just go with
the
it.
cool thing is, like, and she would bring her dad, and he would buck dance, and he was one of my favorite things I heard of it, because I love that guy. We prattled on and on about God knows what.
Yeah.
But
he was quite a character.
And the other thing is that, you know, the Time Warp Tuesdays was Geezer Bike Night.
Yeah.
And
there would be,
you never knew what was going to show up.
There might be 20 and there might be 150.
Well, it's not just that. It's like what would show up.
Right. As far as bikes.
Man, I remember being there one night, and there were not one, but 2 Vincents out in front of that place.
Now, how, for folks that don't know,
a Vincent is an English motorcycle that was the first motorcycle that the motor was the stressed frame member. So basically everything bolted to the motor. So for this, that was like the paradigm shift, the paradigm shift for motorcycle construction. The other thing that was really cool about it was it had a sprocket on each side of the rear wheel. So you could take it off and turn it around and change the gearing. Now,
and it was fast.
This is, for its time, it was a V-twin and a rocket, which is, that's why Raoul Duke / Hunter Thompson spoke about entering. We're here with the Vincent team for the Mint 500 or for whatever. But
so you got to see 2 in one night, and
well, it's just the fact that they were on Central.
Right.
So one was a Black Lightning, the Richard Thompson famous thing, which is what Thompson said they were racing in the desert race. But the other one was a thing called a Cyclone, which basically had the same bottom end, but it had a dead man's. Oops, I keep hitting my mind. I had a dead man chamber with no piston, so it was a single, but it's kind of like a Ducati Supermono, and I can go on and on about that crap, which I know a bit about, but can't work on any of it.
Well, I guess where I was going with that too was just the fact that you got to see 2 in one night in your hometown on Central, when there's God knows how many of them there's even left.
Yeah, and the other thing is, like, the greatest thing about that place is
Hen's Teeth. I think is
it's the same thing with bike nuts as it is with musicians, or basically you can just say this about all dudes. Dudes never aged mentally past between 13 and 18. And
I know we've all got brain damage till at least 28.
Well, but I'm just saying you just accumulate more data and maybe get better at some stuff. But yeah. And I'm just going from personal experience.
Same here with the brain damage thing. Who are you? Where are we?
Yeah.
Well, I've seen a couple of shows there at the Time Warp, and enjoyed it. I always thought it was really cool that there was that eclectic of a place that, and thought it was pretty cool.
Bless you, Dan and Peggy Moriarty.
Yeah. And, but Justin is who I first heard about you from. And then
Nix or Earl?
Justin Nix.
Okay.
Yeah. And
when was that?
Oh gosh, that would have been
70s.
No, that would have been
early aughts.
Yeah, probably so. Because I guess Justin's oldest boy is.
Oh, this is going to hurt.
11 now, probably.
I don't feel that bad then.
10, 11, 12, somewhere around in there.
Well, it'd be teens. Whatever.
Yeah, I'm the world's worst at that. Trying to remember dates, but a few years back.
Okay.
But any rate, and he was talking about your guitar prowess and being a good dude, and that you
check clear. Keep going.
Yeah, and and then there was the thing about the petting zoo, but we won't get into that. But
not my hobbies.
But then he was talking about that you made music for. I guess at the time, your job, you worked with HGTV or so all of that kind of that whole.
I'll give you the fast as I can make it run down from larva to TV. I'm so musically blessed in the sense that my daddy was actually apparently at one point he was a budding or attempting clarinet player. But I don't know how he wound up getting through med school, but he was a board certified meat mechanic, and he built his own stereo. It was a Dynakit, and I've still got all this stuff. But the thing is, his big heroes were Louis Armstrong and Nat Cole's trio. He was also really into the hipper big bands. He liked Stan Kenton, Ellington, Basie, yada yada. Big Artie Shaw fan. But,
and you grew up in Morristown, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's on the old man side. He came. Well, I grew up I was born in Middlesbrough, and we'll get to that in a sec. So the thing is, that's the Jazzbo side came from the old man side. But ironically, he was born and raised in Pineville. His dad passed, I think, when he was 6, and he was orphaned by the age, I think, of 13. He had a brother younger than him. 2 younger brothers, I believe. Because Ben and Nuke were younger than he was. But nonetheless, and his older sister, at this point, they were taken in and being raised by a fella guy out in Allard named Daniel Boone Gabbard. And then a few years later, his sister Mildred got them all back in the same house. But anyway, by the time we came along, so that's the Pineville side. And then my mother was Ann Beatty, and she came from Jamestown.
Okay.
And she grew up listening to WWVA or WSM on the radio. And as a kid, I was getting the Jazzbo stuff, from the homemade crazy stereo. And then on the weekends, getting hammered with WWVA and WSM on the radio.
Right.
So
you're coming by it honest.
And then here comes the paradigm shift. Then the British invasion happened. The aforementioned Mildred had 3 kids. The oldest was I don't know. I think Brenda was the oldest. And then 2 brothers, Phil and Greg Slusher. And Phil was a drummer and Greg was a bass player. And they literally came to blows daily over who was better, the Beatles or the Dave Clark 5. I went through the British invasion in a basement apartment in Pineville, Kentucky. I remember viscerally where I was on February 9th, 1963, which is the night that the crime rate in New York City dropped to 0. And that was when the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan.
Yeah. The really big shoe.
Yes. And so that's what lit the fire there. And then I had these 2 amazing older sisters, both huge Beatle nuts. But the oldest one, and this is how how a white cheerleader in Morristown, Tennessee, somehow gets hit by the Supremes, which leads her into the Motown, Stax, Bolt, all that stuff.
I was a big Martha and the Vandellas fan. I love those.
You say that, and I just hear that.
Yeah.
Nowhere to run to, baby.
But I mean, those are the people that pulled me on the bus and down the hole.
Well, you just got the wheels were going round and round, as they say.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
What's sad and dumb is, dude, I didn't start playing anything till I was like, here's the deep dark secret. First thing I played was banjo.
Oh shit! I know
that's why my teeth are
fucking
weirdo.
weirdo.
You kept that under wraps. That's the first time.
Well, but here's the deal. Anybody who plays banjo knows it's just Keith Richards plays the banjo. It's that open G thing, and but
something you may not have known about me. I too, first instrument was the banjo.
Man.
Or they called it up around these parts, the banjo.
Yeah, well,
who's picking the banjo here?
Yeah,
Deliverance. I'll add that in.
But I mean, so that that led to the banjo led to the Telecaster.
Well, were there did you have neighborhood also influencers and bluegrassers and stuff like that?
I had a neighbor next door, a guy named Jimmy Penland, who was a bass player, and I hung out with him. And I'm still he passed. Oh Lord, probably I don't know, 20 or 30 years ago, but he was really good friends with a guy that was from South Carolina named Luke Brunson. Who was a fire-breathing player and who was he was on the path. In other words, he was studying. He was the first guy that I ever saw that had the Tommy Tedesco book, which is that thing's tough. And
we talked about a bunch of those cats with Mark Dunn here 2 or 3 weeks ago about the Wrecking Crew and all that,
and
the West Coast.
But so there's that, and then I cannot remember, but there was a fire-breathing banjo player in town, and his first name was Jim, and sadly I can't come up with his last name. But I mean, he was going to play at Buddy's and stuff.
Yeah,
back when Skaggs and Whitley were playing there, and blah 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 blah. And but so then
that started what? I think that started like in '86.
It's before.
Was it before then?
Yeah, I think that
was it '76.
Yeah,
or '82 maybe, around about the same time.
Late '70s,
late '70s, early '80s.
Okay,
and because Buddy, quote unquote, got rich at the World's Fair, and then after that it changed.
Okay,
but I mean, and if you want to know all the great dirt, you need to get Doug Klein in here.
Oh, I've already mentioned.
Yeah, because Klein, and Klein can tell you stuff that may not even be, it's still illegal.
Well, but we make shit up around here all the time too, so that'd be perfect.
But anyway, so
you had some mates.
Yeah, but the thing is, and I had this. So I started studying guitar with this fella named Jimmy Gibson, who is, and I'm gonna go now and then time travel.
Still in Kentucky?
No. This is in Morristown.
Okay.
So we moved to Morristown when I was 6.
Okay.
And but I started studying guitar with Jimmy Gibson, and his little brothers were friends of mine, and we were like pestilence. We were straight up urchin little brother assholes.
Yeah.
And anyway, but he's the first guy. He couldn't afford a really fancy Gibson, so he was able to get himself a beautiful Trini Lopez, which if anybody knows what's going on, that's basically a 335 with a Strat headstock with the diamond. In other words, Dave Grohl's guitar now.
Okay.
That's what a Trini Lopez is. So anyway, he started, taking classes over at Walter State, which is basically the community college in Hamlin County. And this brings us to Alan Smith. Alan Smith was doing student teaching because he was one of Jerry Coker's students. Have I gone on about where Jerry? Yeah, we were talking earlier.
Earlier, but that's okay.
I'll run through the etymology of that real fast. So anyway, Alan was teaching there, and they had a combo going, and he brought Jerry down to do a clinic for this combo. And my buddy Jimmy was, my teacher Jimmy was the guitar player in this combo. And he literally got them to play in 30 minutes to where they were looking around the room, trying to figure out whether, for example,
where's the UFO that just landed?
But it's, the drummer's like going, what's this horn player trying to do? Tell me how to play drums. And Jerry's going, well, you need to put the kick on the end of 3. And then, then the guy's like, okay. And then he can't do it. And then but Jerry's super patient, and they get to where, he's starting to get it. It's starting to feel good. And same thing with the chord voicings, don't play the whole chord, just play part of the chord. The bass players, and don't play the roots, yada, yada, yada. And literally within 15 or 20 minutes, they did not sound like the same people. And this was when, because at this point I was thinking, maybe I want to try to go to Berkeley or some job like that.
Isn't it, just to interrupt for a second, but isn't it amazing, those people that have that ability to do that? I mean, we had a guy at our school, Dr. Melton, who was that way. Mm-hmm. And when we would warm up in choir, he would take, he'd divide us up, maybe 6 parts, so first and seconds, and, boys and girls, altos, sopranos, tenors,
right,
bass, blah, 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 blah. But he would just sit there and move us. He'd move this section in a half step and this one a whole, and then say, come down on the diminished third here and sing in.
I live for
and
that.
You would just sing. And so you're talking about chord structure, and he was teaching us chord structure with our voices. And then the
whole thing moved around.
Yeah, and it just moved everywhere. What
a place to be in the room.
And so I always, that's, my brain went straight to him as I'm visualizing the story
right
of this guy saying, no, do it here and do this and then come around. But
it's getting across the data and then showing you how to manipulate it, and how
that's a superpower.
You can go manipulate it your own way.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's why I keep saying, man, Alan Smith is one of the most important people in my life.
Yeah. Now, you and Alan played and made a lot of music together over the years.
He wound up being the bass player on my senior recital, which was the first the first jazz recital that was ever held at Ella Garou's. And bless his heart, he was going to play on everything, and then there was a funk tune that Mark Brooks played on at the end of that, which Mark wound up being the bass player in the Dirt Clods. And then, man, Al had some sort of stomach virus. It's amazing he made it through the gig. And then he ran home and blowed up. But anyway, so that's how I wound up going to Knoxville. So the thing is, mind you, in preparation to get to Knoxville, me and a fella named Mike Provenche, we started coming down and going to Lynn's to take lessons to get ready to go to UT Jazz School. So he's taken from Holloway, which is really preparing him for getting in the program, because Rusty was the guy driving the boat in the program for jazz bass guy. Or, you could, with Rusty, you could go down the orchestral path, or you can, go into the music of unemployment. But my guy was Chris Kirkland, which is we wound up to this day, I can decode, but my sight reading sucks. But the thing,
sight reading so long, my suck too.
And
I'm sure
it's like it's like any other discipline. You got to do it every day, or to
totally.
Get it. But
totally lose it.
The thing is, he was great for what I wound up doing.
Yeah,
because. And the other thing about Chris, which I understand, he's not doing well, and he was one of the most incredible players I've ever heard, because he's the only guy I ever sat that watched, and he's like, okay, I'm going to do the Kings and then contemporary. So he sat there with a PVT 60 that probably weighed 15 pounds, and he's like, here's Freddie. Here's BB. Here's Albert. And to this day, he is the only person where he said, guess who this is? And I immediately went, that's Jimmy Page. Most people, it's not going to be, they may cop a lick or try to play, but no, he played the blues like Jimmy Page with the phrasing and the same note choice. So anyway, and then I wound up down here living in one of L.W. Roberts' hovels on Forest Avenue with my roommates, Doug Meach, Provence, and a fellow named Steve Rowe, who I just recently connected with again. Provence moved to Texas. But two guys that lived in this little bitty shack in the alleyway were George Hooks and a guy named Smokin' Dave Nichols.
Okay.
And that was 2/3 of the trio.
Right.
And so I went in, there's a tune on that CD I gave you called Fucked Up Town, which has a spoken word part where it says, I came down from Morristown to the college town. First two guys I met were Smokin' Dave Nichols and George Hooks. I asked them what kind of music they played. They said, it's ours. It's all original. That was my corn dog from Pedro moment.
Yeah.
That's when I went, so much for cover bands. It's time to get to work.
Right.
So
there you found another couple of inspirational figures to challenge you.
Oh, well, it wasn't just that. It was just like the paradigm shift in your head. It's like,
yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. It's time for build it. You got to do your own thing. And among there were a few other Hamblin Countyans that crawled down that I was unaware of, but a guy I was in French class with, Dennis Shockley, aka Doc Shock. He's mentioned in that tune too.
Yeah.
And but he was pals with Bonehead and people that hung out at the hippie house, so I didn't realize it, but there are all these bands that are coming through that wind up, stuff that's playing at Hobos and at Vic and Bill's. Dude, Dead Kennedys, Minutemen, legendary shit.
Yeah.
And just some of the stuff like the place that was, I think Hobos was behind, it was the room behind the old Vic and Bill's down going towards the trestle. The two most insane gigs I'm familiar with that happened there were the Stray Cats. This was the week before they played on Fridays that got them their American record deal. That was the closest I'd ever been to living quadrophenia. It was like there were mods, there were rockers, and the air conditioning failed, and they had They had to take a break halfway because they were starting to arc off their instruments. So it was a Sunday night, and where the Taco Bell is, there used to be a convenience store there called a Roadrunner. So it's Sunday night, so the strip's deserted. So the place pukes out, and like a giant amoeba, the crowd goes over to the Roadrunner to get liquids. Meanwhile, well, the other thing, back up, that night, there were two guys in that crowd that were just wearing board shorts and jumping. They weren't slam dancing or pogoing. They were just jumping and bouncing off each other's chests the entire time. And after 30 minutes, it became obvious to me, they are tripping balls. So when the giant amoeba goes out and goes across the street and everybody feeds into the Roadrunner, I see these two dudes come, with really big pupils. They just walk back to the cooler. Each of them grab a 12-pack and just walk right back out. And the lady's kind of going, hey. And as they're walking back to the club, as anyone is coming towards them, they're going, have a beer, have a beer, have a beer, have a beer. So then the great rock and roll moment happens is like when the entire amoeba gets sucked back into the club. They're back at going, bouncing off each other. The cops come walking in there looking for the two dudes that stole two 12-packs right when the Stray Cats launch into Rumble in Brighton.
Oh, shit.
And dude, the whole room just turned. The cops can't do it, and they just backed out. It was great.
Smart.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And then I think the week after, some guy named Iggy played there.
Oh, yeah.
And Nash the Slash opened, and I got a buddy named Tim Funk that apparently got up to stage dive, and I believe he was wearing his pressed denim jeans and his members only jacket, and the punk crowd just parted like the Red Sea and onto the concrete floor. So no fronting at the Iggy gig.
How great is that?
Well.
So, so you not only get to from the Morristown to the college town, but you're getting
all manner of education,
an intro to a whole manner of education.
Well, not just that. So meanwhile, I'm still going to Jazzbo land,
right?
And the people that come through for like clinics or performances or this, that, so.
Oh, exactly. It's still, I guess, and to me, like, the correlation of all that is, okay, you had the influence from your dad and the magic radio.
Oh,
you
yeah.
had the influence. Let me get there.
Keep going.
And then you have the influence from from Nashville and from Bristol, and then you got the Sisters and the Beatles, and it all just went with you, and then you found all this other shit to be hit over the head with.
I missed a very important segment. The Sisters. The Sisters wind up going to the college town.
Yeah.
They are renting a little apartment or a little house or whatever okay, let me get this straight. Rockwood's down 40, right?
Right.
What's the other
Rockford.
That's okay. So they're in Rockford, right. And they've got like a little Mustang too, and blah, blah, blah. But what winds up happening is I become the underage designated driver. And so, first thing is like before any of that stuff happened, this is when the first sister got launched. And this is the first moment I realized I was in the right place where I needed to be. And this was, she took me to see the Dillards at the Bijou. And we're in the balcony, and man, the show just goes on, and there's all kinds of local people that are playing with them. So anyway, they take a long break, and they're going to come back for the encore. Excuse me. And sitting there, we'd like to introduce a special friend, Earl Scruggs. Place blew up.
Sure.
That was the first I'm where I need to be.
Yeah.
So due to them, later when my sister Lynn came down, she wound up, her boyfriend was a fellow named Rick Long, who was the son of Harold Long, the
karate dude. Yeah.
Ishinryu karate guy, the guy that went to Korea and brought back that specific flavor.
Ishinryu.
So I got to see Rick and Gary at the Kim Memorial thing. Got mad love for those cats. Anyway, Rick and his buddy Steve Swafford were running the Cat's Meow. And there are people that played at the Cat's Meow. Ashley Cleveland, Pam Tillis.
What a singer. I love Pam Tillis, man.
Well, Ashley's no slouch.
I just don't know. And I'm bragging on Pam.
You might have heard of her husband. His name's Kenny Greenberg.
Yeah.
He's like Chesney's road guy, but for me, his real gig was playing with Pat McLaughlin on Fridays at Douglas Corner.
Right.
But that's a whole other branch of it. But anyway, apparently, and somebody that when I went to Nashville for my Lost weekend, one of the first people I looked up that was very kind and helpful, I can't do much, but I'll do it, was a guy named Hose Fleming. And apparently, Judge Dirk Whittington has a recording of Jerry Coker playing tenor, Rusty Holloway playing bass, and Hose Fleming playing sitar at the Cat's Meow.
Oh, wow.
I cannot pass this plane before I hear this.
Right.
And, but anyway, so there's that. So I kind of, I got to learn the geography and back roads of Knoxville and the Strip.
Yeah.
Because back then, man, it hadn't been long before, there were bands like ZZ Top and Marshall Tucker playing on the Strip. And then later when I got to TV Land, I got to know guys like Randy Day and, other people that were in the Marshall Tucker bubble.
Right.
And
Randy was their light guy. Is that right?
I'm getting confused.
Or I may be confused.
Randy was the audio guy.
Randy was the audio.
Randy was audio.
Okay.
And I'm blanking. I'm looking right at him. Wonderful fellow, wears glasses. He was a
Ben Fields had
but that's my cognition's fading as I.
Well, no worries.
But
don't spin spinner wheels on it.
But I mean, so at that point, that's going on, and then the other thing that really helped my music brain is so then that sister winds up going to New York. She's going to try to be a dancer, and I'm not talking like on a pole.
Sure,
I'm talking like she wound up.
Was she in ballet?
Well, I used to tease her about it because she wound up doing stuff with Merce Cunningham and Twyla Tharp. So this is like bleeding edge art monster.
Mm.
And I used to tease her that she had the body of Patti Smith and the legs of Gail Sayers. And but I mean, so she wound up, she would call me with these dispatches of, I'm like, so what are you hearing? What are you listening to? Blah, blah, blah. And this is when, she was poor as dirt. She lived on Rivington, which was apparently the leading shooting gallery on planet Earth at that time. She would open her door. Luckily, the door opened inwards because then she would have to step over junkies to go to, like athletes go to the gym, dancers go to class. And that's where they're working out and working on their chops at the same time. So anyway, but she kept me up on what was going on at this place called CBGB's, or there are other places. So it was through her that I was getting these dispatches about bands called the Ramones or the Talking Heads, or And but one of the people that she got me hip to was a woman named Ann Magnuson. And Ann Magnuson, you may have seen this amazing thing on Cinemax that was her special. Had Meatloaf.
Well,
I
do have 4 good eyes.
Yeah, but it was called Vandemonium, and the premise was she and her boyfriend, played by Meatloaf, were on his Harley on their way to the Redneck-a-Rama, and they have this crash, and they go into the side of a van, but instead of like bouncing off of it and dying, she flies into the mural on the van. So from there, she encounters Salvador Dali and his wife Gala, and her fairy godmother is Stevie Nicks, who it's
right.
But she was a performance artist on the Lower East Side. She had all these different characters. She had a metal band called Vulcan Death Grip. She had a hippie band called Bongwater. Oh, and it's killing. I can't come up with the punk band because that's the best name. Oh. Google it for me out there, people. Anyway, but years and years later, everyone bemoans the Facebooks. I see her on some post from somebody that I know in New York, and I just write her a note, and I tell her this story and how, being a hillbilly kid in a town called Morristown, but getting dispatches from the cultural center, to the bleeding edge of the zeitgeist, that, she had a big impact on my brain.
Right.
3 minutes go by, boom, Ann Magnuson wants to be your friend. I'm like, well, okay, and and we still, and in 16, I went to LA, and we came so close to having lunch, but life intervened on both our parts.
Wow.
But, and to this day, dude, I mean, she's been like a captain in Star Trek. She was whatever, but she's a hero.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's from West Virginia. So, they walk among us.
Yeah.
Folks.
Would it have been Pulsalama?
No. Keep looking.
The other two you mentioned, Bongwater, Vulcan Death Grip.
It was, I got nothing. But I mean, she would, be these different personas.
Well, and just what you're saying there, that just shows you too what, how far this stuff goes, and people's talents and ambitions and their careers. And I mean, long before we had internet, or before we had, when there was phones that still had a cord in it, and your dad would kick your ass if you stayed on there too long, because it was a long distance call, and not to be getting, it was don't bore us, get to the chorus, in a lot of our stuff. And I remember watching the first when we first got cable, and was watching the Cubs play on a Tuesday afternoon, and I'm like, there's hey, everybody.
Yeah.
There's 25,000 people there, and I'm just like, don't nobody in fucking Chicago have a job? Why are they all watching baseball in the middle of the day? And then I learned that that's the way God intended it.
Yes.
But that was one of the things with the sporting worlds was like I would see that and you just immediately transported there for me and just wanted to know. Hello, music lovers. Campbell's Music Room Guitars was opened and founded by our longtime friend Kyle Campbell back in 2017. If you're a beginner or a seasoned pro, you're always needing something. From strings, picks, or maybe a repair to your trusty instrument. Campbell's Music Room Guitars has a full line of all the stringed instruments. New and pre-owned, accessories, pedals, amplifiers, and here's the best part. It's a local, family-owned business where you will get the very best of sales and service from the owner himself. Campbell's Music Room Guitars has something for everyone. Did we mention that he also gives private lessons? Kyle is one of Knoxville's most multi-talented players and teachers with many years of professional teaching experience. Located at 5103 Kingston Pike, open Tuesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Give Kyle a call at 865-584-0041 or stop by and tell him McGill and Jamie sent you and you wanted to have one more for the good guys.
Why are they doing just West Virginians? Chuck Yeager, Don Knotts, Ann Magnuson, Bill Withers. Well, that's my Mount Rushmore.
There's four pretty damn good
West
ones.
Virginians.
Yeah. Well, and you're saying you were from, your dad was from Pineville. I mean, my God, just in the country music field alone, how many greats were from Kentucky? I mean, Keith Whitley, Dwight Yoakam, Loretta Lynn.
There's a ghost right now that is just so pissed off you haven't gotten to him.
Well, I'm trying.
Yeah.
Help me. I don't need no fucking.
So back.
I don't need no goddamn creepy crawlies around in the honky tonk, man.
So
help me out. Get him off my back.
We're almost up to the point where. So during my Jazzbo whatever, I also these two dudes that I heard play at Hawkeyes, and I mean, I drug my guitar down there and was like, I'm going to sit in, and it was Preston Rumbaugh and Scott Campbell. They were known as the Plush Boys. And Preston, if I can play rhythm guitar, it's his fault. Mm. He was the motor. Mm-hmm. Preston had almost a military approach to everything. I saw him go up against a dude that was like, he wasn't going to pay the band. He's like, we can't leave until my men have been paid. And Preston like flew to England for the original Rockabilly revival. And I mean, we're talking like the super guts. Yeah. He like one-way ticket, Gretsch Silverjack, and some kind of little Fender amp, and wound up busking in the tubes.
And if nobody don't know, the world was a whole lot bigger back then.
Yeah. So he flies to England, winds up busking in the tubes, and he also, sorry, Preston, I'm going to tell everything I know. And he also winds up with this gig in a restaurant playing country music. These guys from Liverpool came in and they got really hammered on his tab and got him fired. And they felt bad. So like, you come stay with us. So this is when the squatters were going on, these giant homes in London that were like bombed out with no power in them. So he winds up, this is everything I can remember from Preston. He winds up staying with these dudes for a while, and he winds up like, he gets a cold because there's no power, blah, blah. He's like, I'm really sick. And one morning I woke up, and what woke him up was the sound of water dripping in his pillow. So anyway, he's sick, and these guys are like, "Oh mate, we feel awful. We're gonna make you a meal. We're gonna get you better." So they go out, shades of Cool Hand Luke, knock off a bunch of those big red phone booths, go down to the docks, and bring back this giant tuna. And so you're in this giant house where's the best place to build a fire? The sink. They cook this tuna over the sink. Preston's like, it's the finest meal I've ever had. So within a couple days, I don't know how the timeline's working out. We'll have to talk to Preston. But they drag him to an in-store where this rockabilly band called Shakin' Pyramids is playing. And they've got an upright dude. Preston's also a viciously badass upright player. And they threaten the band, the guys from Liverpool. Right, you need to let our mate set in or we'll kill you. Well, okay. So Preston plays with them and they're like, right, look at old bass player, you're fired. So he goes like within a day or whatever from the fish cooked
best meal he's ever had in his life,
water dripping in your pillow,
water in the pillow,
to staying in Richard Branson's penthouse and having breakfast with, let me get this right, parts of Genesis and Steve Howe, and they're going to hook him up because Preston, of course, has taken over their band. So he's the figurehead, and he's going to go meet with Dave Edmunds and talk about producing their record. And this is, I'm sure he would cop to this. I term it his alcoholic Marxist phase, and he proceeds to tell Dave Edmunds what a sellout piece of shit he was, and so there's Preston's another one of my favorite podiatric marksmen. So anyway, and then apparently also he
was he from Kentucky?
No,
I don't need these goddamn haints running around my place here.
No,
he said
I think he's from Dixon.
Well, who's this person from Kentucky that I forgot?
Oh, Monroe.
Oh, well,
yeah.
Well, you got too far out there, boy.
Yeah. So, but anyway,
trying
to reel it back in from Preston. Apparently, he also had an offer from his buddy in New Jersey named Setzer that he wanted him to play bass in his band called the Stray Cats.
Oh yeah.
So there's the
bringing it back around.
Yeah, but anyway, so back to playing at Hawkeyes with Preston and Scott, and then that wound up being. He had this thing called the Catalinas, which was me and Kevin Trotter and Mark Brooks playing it. And then his other band called, oh, good God, I can't believe I can't, because I'm looking at the poster. Anyway, it was with Brian singing. They were the Plush Boys. Boogie Disease, good God, what's wrong with me? So anyway, but then Preston left town. So then I'm like, well, let's go see Brian because we've got a whole band here that's left, and that's where the Dirt Clods came from.
Okay,
so
nice. So you're still in school at this time?
I had completed. I had been paroled from the jazz mines.
I got you.
So I am just a blight on society, teaching guitar at Morell's. And the guy in the other closet at Morell's, the other broom closet from me is a cat named Mick Murphy.
Okay.
Who is, to this day, one of the most vicious, badass guitar players on planet Earth. And their band at that time was Hypertribe. And they had, I don't remember the drummer. Rasky Lennox played bass. Manning Jenkins was the other guitar player, and I can't remember.
So after you got out of school, then you were still here for a little while,
teaching and trying to get the Dirt Clods going and blah 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 blah, and
and the Dirt Clods, was that
me
rock and roll country?
That was our problem.
Alt. Yeah, you wanted to do it all.
We were all those things.
Right.
And
I know that's
that's.
I understand
that. We had a period there where we got schmoozed within an inch of our lives. We recently were mentioned in Rolling Stone because...
Well, they do.
Yes, because that's when Brian and Lucinda were an item.
Okay.
But the thing is, it's like, man, I cannot say enough kind things about her because she thought we had something going on. And she is the reason we got to go play South by Southwest and, you know, all kinds of neat stuff like that. And that was the year that we met all kinds of folk. Like, this is where we struck up a mutual admiration society with a band called the Bottle Rockets from Fest.
Yeah.
But the difference was
radar gun.
So they had 2 or 3 self-released records. They were busting their butts to get a deal. They wound up getting signed to a thing called TAG, which meant the Atlantic Group.
They were in Indianapolis with a bad fuel pump.
Yep, all that great stuff.
Yeah.
But the thing is, so they had, you know, they'd been at it. They had a working track record, blah, 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 blah. We had nothing. We weren't ready. We spent a lot of money at a time on a demo that never got released. And then it was, you know, it's like, well, you need to move to Nashville. Got to go to Nashville. Nashville's not a band town.
Yeah, no.
And
no, you need to be a straight up killer.
You know, so 3 out of 4 of us moved to Nashville.
Yeah.
Bass player stayed at Dollywood because he had, you know, paycheck.
Yeah.
It slowly fell apart.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be just kind of thinking about it, it seemed like if that was the case, you know, that was probably what did get you to Nashville and your lost weekend.
And then the other, so, you know.
And you're how old at this point?
Real fucking.
No. Back then.
Oh.
I know you're 3 days. Hey, yeah. I know you can't go in the store and put a 3-minute egg. I mean, you got to put a down payment on it. Yeah. I understand that.
No, I somewhere in my 30s.
Okay.
But and that was the other thing. It's like, you know, anytime we would go meet with anybody that, you know, something would get us into the door, one of the first things that they'd ask us is, well, how old are you?
Yeah.
And we just, you know, what we started figuring out was like, why?
We're 13 and a half.
Yeah. We're in our 20s. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that, yeah. So anyway, that's what led me to coming back here. And I didn't want to teach anymore, or that, you know, that wasn't going to work. So
now, wait, just real quick. So when you say teach, were you teaching, you were just doing lessons and stuff, or were you actually doing scholastic teaching?
No. I was just doing lessons.
Okay.
And, but the thing is, here's what got me together. So, as I mentioned, my old man was a meat mechanic. So when I came back, I did a stint at the Knoxville Business College.
Okay.
Trying to learn how to do medical transcription. There was a woman there named Sarah Owsley, whose son is gunner at IVK.
Yeah. Okay.
First thing I know, you know, so having been around like I've been, first thing I noticed at that place is most of those people are, you know, lower in the economic strata. And the thing that Ms. Owsley is trying to burn into their brains is you need to learn how to do a resume. You need to be on time, blah, 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 you know, and like, you know, coming from the laissez-faire, hey, man, what, you know, so.
What time's the bus leaving? Tuesday, sharp.
Yeah.
You can't be that guy no more.
Right. And so due to my audio stuff, I had no problem with that. But what I didn't figure out was at that time, most of the surgeons were Indian and they spoke incredibly fast with really thick accents. There was no way I was going to be able to do that gig. Mm-hmm. But I'm happy to have paid what I paid for the checkup from the neck up. And ultimately, that stuff and that brainscape, because then what happened was, went through UT, blah, blah, blah. One of the people I met there was a guy named Paul Jones. Paul Jones wound up doing TV music with Klein because he was a better piano player than Doug was. And then I was a better guitar player than Doug or Paul was. And that's how ultimately I wound up getting a gig there. And around between freelance and full time, a quarter century.
Yeah.
And
well, yeah, I mean, you made a career.
Yeah.
That's
and the thing is
phenomenal, man.
Oh, I'd tell I'm the luckiest boy ever.
Yeah.
I am, and it also, I was still able to do things like get sent to Nashville to track stuff for, one of my favorite trips ever was being sent to Joe McMahon's place to do basically knock off Ray Charles arrangements and then put bells on them for Christmas spots. So what that meant was I go, but I had a really tight turnaround. And this is where everybody that I've kind of mentioned came to fore, because boom, you've got 2 or 3 weeks. You're going to have to assemble a band, rhythm section, 5 horns, I think. And then, and be, finger quote, inspired by some classic Ray tracks. So not only did I have to transcribe / kind of change a little bit of stuff here and there so as to not wind up in court.
Right.
So then where's it going to happen? Where's the bet? So I call my buddy Joe McMahon, who I met during my lost weekend in Nashville. And I'm like, hey man, can we do this? He's like, yeah. I said, can you form a band for me? And he's like, oh yeah, I can do that. And then he goes, is there anybody that you'd like to have play on it? And since at this point, another person I've left out of this story is like dear friend Jim Williams, because he's the guy that got me addicted to going to Nashville once a month to see Pat McLaughlin play at Douglas Corner with Michael Rhodes, who just sadly passed away. Kenny Greenberg was generally the guitar player, although one night Bob Britt sat in and I was going, oh man, he doesn't know the songs. I could do that. And then when he soloed, oh man, I'm so glad that he's the guy up there. He was great. And then the drummers were either Greg Morrow or Chad Cromwell. Chad Cromwell has since moved to LA, but Greg's still down there. You can see, folks, if you're listening this long, get onto YouTube, type in Rodney Crowell 56 Fury. And what you're going to see is, I don't know who's playing bass, but Greg Morrow's playing drums. Audley Freed's playing guitar. Rodney's singing. There's some other guy from Texas named Gibbons playing guitar. And it's righteous. But anyway, so he said, is there anybody you want to play?
I've heard that cut.
I was like, man, I'd like to get Greg Morrow. He's like, oh, well, good luck. I was like, I know you just asked, and I'm swinging for the fences.
Sure.
So I show up a couple weeks later, and this is when it's coinciding with back to my Motorhead thing. At this point, I'm also doing freelance photography stuff for getting to sneak in under the circus tent at the Barber Vintage Motorbike thing. So I'm going to track there, and then I'm going to Barber for Motorbike weekend. Anyway, so I get down there, and I see everybody, and he's like, man, I couldn't get the guy to play drums that I was going to get. I was like, Oh, he said, but I got this other guy, Greg Morrow. I went, yes! So, and among the other people that I got to play on it is old buddy of Brian's named Mike Webb, who played piano. And the way that Mike recorded his stuff was he basically waited till most of the basic stuff was, and he kind of comped his stuff together. And when it was getting, I was kind of like, oh man, but because he was like doing things over and over to get it just so. And he was the last guy to track anything. And I'm standing there with Morrow and I'm starting to kind of freak. But at this point, I've only heard, pieces parts. I've heard the horn parts. I've heard the bass and drums, but I haven't heard the whole. And so Joe brings the entire mix up and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And just as, as the stress is leaving my body, Morrow punches me in the shoulder and goes, that sounds like it was tracked in an office in Manhattan. I'm like, it sure does. And
this was used for what?
Christmas spots.
Right. Okay.
It's, wickedly grooving, greasy noise.
Yeah.
As wallpaper. But
isn't that crazy? Isn't that the story of,
well, I mean,
half our lives as performers, though? Oh, we got a woodpecker.
Yes.
Son of a bitch.
But I mean, it's like there's so many great things I got to do from there. For example, during are you going out to beat the woodpecker? Oh, okay. But at one point, as it's kind of like as the great sage Steve Earle said when he met Lionel Cartwright, oh, I remember you. You were part of the great credibility scare in the late 90s. And which he was,
Yeah.
But where'd I get put off here? So part of that is I got to do, there was a show on GAC called The Edge of Country that I got to do the theme music for, which, man, that was so fun. So it wound up sounding, it was almost like a twangy NRBQ thing with lots of B-bender stuff on it. Oh man, and I'm blanking on the host. She's a wonderful woman that came from New Zealand and was the host, and she played at the Time Warp. And sadly, and I can remember her drummer's name. His name's Marco Giovino, and he wound up playing in a band with a guy named Robert Plant with Buddy Miller.
Oh yeah.
Who else? Daryl Scott, Patty Griffin, yada yada. Anyway, it'll come to me. Hopefully, I'll spit it out.
But I mean,
but those were the kind of and they would play the videos of Steve Earle. Like that's the one that the video I saw on there was when Steve Earle's riding around in a convertible with Justin and they have a monkey. But I mean, they would play John Hyatt and Steve Earle and that kind of stuff.
Well, that was, so when would that have been? That would have been in 90s?
It had to be in the aughts, the 2000s.
Yeah?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Because, I mean, that was, a lot of that was, so that would have been on, what channel would that have been on?
GAC. I don't know what
GAC. Yeah,
it's a cable thing.
Yeah.
And I haven't had cable for a long.
Yeah, me neither. I was just thinking about. I mean, because there was such a boom of all that.
They were like the
back then.
And the irony was, man, it blew anything away that was on CMT or GAC. It was the coolest show going. Like, she's the first person I ever saw that had Chris Knight on TV. During my last weekend, I saw the first Riders in a Round that Chris Knight did at the Pub of Love. And lots of people are going, poor man Steve. I was like, man, you didn't hear what I heard. That dude is his own guy. And, and sadly, I've seen him a number of times, but I think it's awesome that Abernathy's his guitar player these days. And
is Kevin playing with him now?
Yeah. Or he was for a while there.
I knew they were doing he was doing a bunch of gigs and stuff, with him and was opening some shows and stuff.
Yeah. But I mean, and to go back, I mean, like, I'm still missing out giant swaths of everything because, I am such a fan of our town in the sense that, it goes back, like speaking of Randy Day's the guy that when they were done mastering it, took the acetate of Third Rate Romance to Nashville.
Yeah.
Because it is my understanding that the original lyric is sitting at a bar called Ruby's. It's a ritzy restaurant.
Okay.
And apparently it was drove her to the family on Clinton Highway.
Or Asheville Highway.
All right, yeah, Asheville.
That'd been closer.
But, and then years later.
It's Rutledge Pike.
Rutledge Pike.
Okay.
Yeah.
So years and years later.
Yeah, it would have been Rutledge Pike. I don't know why I said Asheville Highway.
Well, years and years later, I get to go see the band play at 328, which for my money was probably, I don't want to besmirch Robbie too bad, but dude, Jim Weeder was playing guitar and Robbie never sang. And, but Run Jump and, that's a Todd band. Run C&W.
Oh, man.
Was the openers. So Russell walked by.
I love that shit.
And I said,
you remember those guys? You remember them.
Yeah. But Bernie Ledden.
Yeah.
Russell Smith. But Russell's walking by and I said, hey, was the original lyrics? And I spat that line at him and he goes, huh? That's all I got. So I'm like, I took that as confirmation. But I mean, dude,
that Run CMW stuff was the Bernie Ledden, as Phil said. Yeah. But they did the I mean, the one I remember, I really, really, really remember. I mean, they did all kinds of shit. But the
Walking the Dog
was great. And Hold On, I'm Coming.
Oh yeah,
the Sam and Dave tune. But they did it bluegrass.
Yep. And they did the shit out of it.
Oh, did the absolute pick the hair off of it, as the old man would say.
And Russell's voice.
Oh, tremendous. Tremendous. It was so unique. It was so unique.
Well, I mean, just that's the other things, like just get down to phrasing, like she broke a needle, now she can't sew walking dog.
Yeah.
Yep.
They were the Cleverleys before the Cleverleys. I don't know if you've heard those guys yet or not.
All I know is they
were badasses.
They were weapons grade.
Yeah, they were badasses. And which one was the one dressed up in the fat suit and the track suit?
I don't know, but he was.
You remember that, don't you?
Sound
from like vaguely. The video stuff back in the day.
Vaguely, yeah.
So one of the front guys, had a fat suit, and then he had like a matching track suit over top of it, like the DMC boys.
Mm-hmm.
And the chains and the whole deal. But they would do.
Bernie played the electric banjo with like a strap body.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's just
that picture.
Fucking killer I don't shit, that man.
I know, but that's
just killer stuff. I mean, it was gimmick, whatever.
And their daddy Dad Burns.
Yeah, Paul Burns.
Yeah.
Side Burns.
He'd
Rug Burns.
He'd put us all on his big old long knee. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was tremendous stuff. Now, see, I didn't realize that. Okay, I mean, I knew Bernie Ledden, but I didn't realize the other guys that was all a part of that too.
No,
that's
and
tremendous.
Brian. Oh Lord, Brian was in a band. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I mean, he played with Stick Davis.
Yeah.
The Rhythm Aces bass player, and I think that was the band that Brian was in with Walter Egan.
Okay,
and they turned all over Europe, and that's YERP, folks. And but yeah, but
well, I'm a fan of our town as well.
Oh,
and,
dude, I mean, and like, so traveling back to Fort Sanders, things that this town does not know enough about. And it it chokes me up to think about it. Man, if you didn't get to see Terry Hill play, you missed out. My favorite nickname for him was Coltrane with a Mustang. And brilliant songwriter, amazing guitarist. You know, their band was Balboa. That was Hector, Terry, I think Richard Battaglia was the bass player, and their drummers were Klein and Steve Housewright.
Yeah.
And it went to New York and blowed up, and then they all came back. But I mean, that's another guy that is a gigantic musical influence on me. Because we wound up teaching in the same, because I also taught at Rob Payne's, and but I was of the three broom closets. On one side of me was Terry, and on the other side was Travis Wyrick. So, I mean, these are two blindingly badass guitar players,
right?
Of which had completely different approaches. And, because like one's on his way to, and Travis still rips. I haven't heard him play in a long time, but I've seen clips here and there, oh yeah, I'll see if I can rip,
Yeah.
And then, but the thing is, Terry's deal is like, man, he's up there with Tom Verlaine and Richard Lloyd and any other whacked out, bleeding edge art monster, Lower East Side New York dude you can come up with. But the thing is like to seek out and hear the songs, the stuff that he and Klein did at the Camel House are astonishing.
Yeah.
They are just astonishing. Because ultimately that's everything we're talking about, or anything that we're trying to get at. It comes down to the song.
Well,
and yes, there's all this.
There's nothing greater than the song, is there?
Well, that's the whole. It's like
that's the old adage. I mean, to me, it's just the truth. I mean,
yeah.
For me and my taste and what I try to do,
well,
it's the song.
And luckily,
because I'm not good enough to do any of the other shit that goes along with it. And mind-numbingly blow minds are bullshit. I mean,
I can't walk in them shoes, and them pants are too tight.
But the songs, those songs, I've said it forever. The what makes a song a great song is, and the ones that stand the test of time can be done in any style.
Oh, I know.
Any genre, any way.
Even bluegrass.
Yeah, even bluegrass,
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
But I mean, it's in, and then you go down like, I don't know if I was telling you, but I recently was gobsmacked by finding Carole King's demo of Pleasant Valley Sunday.
I remember you telling me about that. Yeah.
It's astonishing, and of course they sped it up and, put the guitar lick on it. But I mean, ultimately, because recently, one of the things, like when I hose off in the morning, when I'm trying to unconscious, I try to find something, as long as the shower on YouTube. I found this thing that says bubblegum music, and then it's got like a span of year, like 66 to, 72 or 3. And I'm thinking, oh, it's going to be a little documentary. No, it's just snippets of songs going all the way through. And there's text telling you a little stuff about it.
Yeah.
But man, there's a bunch of that stuff that is amazing. But and this is, it started out, that's what Brill Building people were trying to crank out.
Yeah.
The people that wrote for the Monkees, the two most successful, there's Boyce and Hart, cat named Neil Diamond, because anytime I hear boom, boom, you can either go Monkees or Cherry Baby, it's, so it was the best writers trying to get that stuff going on. But anyway, back to, but yeah, the songs are it. And I still have this, RB tells the story about, old Don wrote Lonesome Me and whatever, on the same day. I think he might have bought those from Arthur Q. Smith on the same day.
There's a lot of things that were bought from Arthur Q. Smith.
And I think Arthur Q. is on par with Hiram Williams.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
And, that's about as Knoxville as it gets, y'all.
Well, I mean, that whole thing Wayne did, him and Bradley Reeves, about Arthur Q. was unbelievable. And then, so we were asked to play at that afterwards. So they did the screening, and then they had the Romeos play afterwards. And we're playing, and then it was somebody else, couple of grassers. It was Tim Stafford and somebody else that played. They played, and then we played. But any rate, I don't know why I remembered that, but I did. So we're playing, and after we get finished, you're halfway shaking and howdy and putting stuff away, and of course there's no real stage. You're totally accessible by the audience. And one of the did you ever know Todd Hill?
I got nothing.
He was in the drum line when I was in band at Carter.
I know who that is.
Okay.
I don't know him.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he was there, and his wife was there. Well, evidently his wife, Arthur Q, was her granddad.
Wow.
Or great granddad or something like that. But it was very close. And so they were just telling me, they were like, and I, like a moron, I've not done it still. And I don't know why. Probably because I'm a moron. There's that woodpecker back. But no, they were just like, we've got pages. She's like, I got notebooks of his stuff.
Whoa.
You should come and look at it.
Yeah, Dead Sea Scroll stuff.
Yeah, and I'm just like, yeah, we totally should. And, put music to it.
Closest thing I got to that in Morristown is apparently, I don't know if it's his niece or his daughter, but Grady Martin's.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you were saying.
Yeah. And that,
That'd be pretty great.
Let me do the deal.
Yeah.
It's an Audi or an Innie?
It's a locked.
Yeah.
I'm afraid somebody's going to get us. There he went. I seen him fly off.
Now nobody can get us.
Well, that is totally. I'm a big fan of this town. Guys like Wayne, Steve Wildsmith.
Yeah, man.
You know, one of the first times I ever played electric guitar in public was around, you know, it was at a Tim Lee 3 show, and Kevin Abernathy, when he was melting everybody's face in the 3-piece rock and roll group.
Yep.
You know,
Weapons Grade.
Oh my God. And I got to go up. I don't even know how to plug all my shit in.
Man,
you understand?
That's another guy you need to get in
understand?
Here, because he had Lost Weekend in L.A., and I think he got to see Van Halen play at a yard party.
Yeah, no, Kevin would be a great one. But I'm just fucking scared to death. I mean, first of all, you know, Tim Lee's there. Okay. And then I've never even heard or seen this Kevin guy, or I'd heard of him, but then he plays, and I'm just like, well, fuck.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I've got one knob, you know, a cord, a pedal board that's got 3 pedals, and I'm a nervous fucking wreck because I don't ever know what I'm doing and which ones to hit on what.
Let me tell you how to deal with it.
And then, well, hang on.
Okay.
Because I do want to know, because I still get nervous. But we get done, and the first guy up to this stage or backstage, whatever it was, is fucking Van Halen after taxes, fucking Kevin Abernathy, you know, and he's just like, man,
you just gave me my next band name.
And he couldn't have been more complimentary and genuine and wanting to see me do more, you know, and I just it was just one of those moments. It was like, this is really fucking cool, man. Because guys don't have to do that shit.
Yeah.
And a lot of them don't. Most of them don't.
Well, it's all
a lot of them do and don't fucking mean it. And most of them don't.
No, it's all.
But this guy did it and meant it. You know, and I've never forgotten that.
One should always try to increase the diameter of their karmic foil ball. But regarding that, and I heard that because these things float back into my head every now and then. But I some of the stories I heard while I was boots on the ground in Nashville, and one of my favorite ones is there's some sort of giant thing going on at the Opry. And Roger Miller is standing next to Luther Perkins. And apparently Glenn Campbell is on stage just ripping, which if anybody knows anything about Glenn Campbell, he was...
Merle Haggard said he was proof that God gives some people too much talent.
Yeah.
So there you go.
We're talking about a guy that was he was in the Wrecking Crew, and then he was like when Brian didn't want to go out with the Beach Boys, they took Glenn to play bass. Yada yada. So Glenn is shredding, and Roger leans into Luther's ear and goes, well, what do you think about that? You know, Luther being the guy that went dong 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 boom. Yeah, I may have changed keys. Anyway, and Luther watches for a second and then kind of turns his head towards Roger while still watching what's going on. He goes, he's looking for it. I found it.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, there's a serious bit of truth there.
There he is. But whatever you say, Luther.
Oh, I know. But it's like, everybody's, it's like the little, the Microsoft butterfly girl, you can be very passionate about this or that.
Yeah.
And some people, I mean, I can watch all kinds of acrobatic crap and it just leaves me cold. Or, like, actually, one of my favorite guitar videos ever is where they've overdubbed the voice and the playing for the Yngwie instructional video. And it's just like, I'm your new god, little boy. And it's, but, and out of all that shred, dude.
Yeah.
Eddie's still the guy for me because I can smell the garage.
Oh, man.
There's rock and roll there.
So there's a story, a blast from the past. So my brother, we were talking about him last week with Poe was here. And so my brother was founding member of the Kingdom Heirs.
Mm-hmm.
And,
did he have a flask and a 38?
He did not.
Well, he was not an average gospel guy that I'm familiar with.
Yeah. He always took two preachers, Baptist preachers, fishing with him as well. Because if you only took one with you, you wouldn't have any beer to drink.
There you go.
While you fished. But no, my brother was, straight arrow, Gennaro. He was all the way. But me and this kid that I went to school with, Aaron Dowling, I don't know if you remember Aaron or not, but Aaron looked like Ricky Schroeder off The Champ.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, get up, Champ, get up. Little blonde-headed kid, good-looking kid. And we were first day of middle school when we got moved over to Carter Middle. There's a big tush hog bully picking on him, and we kind of made buddies, and he played trumpet, I played trumpet, and I told the bully to piss off because I never liked a bully, and I never was a tough guy, or I never done any of that shit, but I would not take no shit from no bully. Fuck you. So Aaron and I got to be really good buddies from that moment on, and so my brother and them had this Silver Eagle, had this bus. Oh yeah, and the first time I ever sat in the jump seat on it, I was ruined,
afflicted,
burnt, as the old people say.
Well, it's like
I was burnt.
That was as a dog. That was the first chicken you killed.
Yeah, totally. So, but we would ride up with them. They would the boys that lived around here, and just around the corner down here. This is where they all caught the bus. That's where the bus stayed. And so we would Aaron would come over and spend the night or something, and we'd meet those guys at the bus, and we'd ride to Dollywood. Well, we'd play all day at Dollywood, see the shows, blah blah blah. But back to Van Halen. I remember they had a massive sound system in this Silver Eagle, so while they're obviously being adults and working, I'd just get the keys from my brother. It wasn't no big deal. And we'd go back out to the bus and we'd bring rock and roll tapes, with us, or different music, and we'd play them on that killer. Yeah. And the first time I ever heard Eruption, I was like, motherfucker, this just changed my life. I don't know what happened here, but I'm really liking it.
That is possibly the greatest moment in that documentary called Back to the Future.
And then they hit, Running with the Devil, and I'm on the, and I'm just like, I'm hooked, man. I mean, Jamie's crying, for God's sakes, and all that shit. And I'm just like, holy cow, I really like this rock and roll. Wonder if they got buses like this too, because I'm a dumb kid. I don't know nothing.
And there's a neat, like the Devil. All right, let's just go down the pentagraphical wormhole.
Oh, hell.
Exactly.
I'm already going to get haunted tonight.
No.
Over Bill Monroe.
You'd be a good bluegrass boy, but you'll have to get a new hat.
Oh, speaking of Preston, I will tell a Monroe story here in a minute. But most of it is like clowny marketing, whatever.
Yeah.
But then when you get, I think the first record that truly gave me the creeps as a kid was that chunk of the Hendrix record where he's, talking about the gypsy woman and, way down on the methane sea and blah, blah. I'm like going, this is different from my 8-year-old brain. What happened, And then he's also the man that would, you'll never hear surf music again, what, once it's functioning on a certain level, it's like, these cats may be serious,
Yeah, well, this was all dressed up in glitter and shit. I was hooked. I loved it. The first one that ever really creeped me out, like I didn't know what the fuck was going on, was probably, I don't know. It's probably Sabbath or Iron Maiden or something like that. Because again, you're talking to the kid that never knew. I wouldn't have known who ZZ Top fucking was if it wasn't been for Give Me All Your Lovin' in the video,
And you were riding the Kingdom Heirs bus.
And I was riding the Southern Gospel. Yeah. I didn't know any of that stuff.
So as you heard earlier, I had a motorcycle problem.
Right.
And that lasted a lot. I just a year or so ago got rid of my Italian Rocket, and it's mostly because of it ain't me. It's all the crap they're putting in a car now that will have someone run over me and wonder what the thud was. But I
didn't see my warning light.
Yeah, but the guy I mentioned that turned me on to the whole Pat McLaughlin culture, he's the dude that kind of snuck me under the circus tent for NAMM because he was dear buddies with a fellow named Mike Tobias, who is a crazy luthier that makes, as I put it, furniture with strings. His bases are, there's like Olympic and blah, blah, it's bass is its own subculture. But nonetheless, so what Mike would do is he would ride his motorbike down from Kingston, aka also known as Kingston, Woodstock, all this stuff, basically the same community-ish. He'd ride to Roanoke and then next day get up and ride to Knoxville. And then we would take the scenic route from Knoxville to Nashville, go do NAMM. And then they had gone south one year. They went down the Trace and took a ride at Tupelo and went to Clarksdale. And this is where they met this fella named Rat. So the next year they repeated the trip and I went on this trip.
Hey, good guys and good gals alike. If you're looking for somewhere to go to get your hair did, then look no further than the Chop Shop Hair Studio. Our longtime friend and supporter, Cindy Lou, opened this spot located in Knoxville's very own Happy Holler back in 2010. Chop Shop Hair Studio offers a variety of services, including facial waxing, accessories, tools, and a complete line of men's and women's products, along with essential oils. A lover and supporter of the musical arts here locally and abroad, Cindy has a small stage with stringed instruments and offers discounts to guests if they are willing to play and or sing a song. The Chop Shop Hair Studio is a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll, and 100% pure style, just like our dear friend and owner, Cindy Lou. The hours are Tuesday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can also visit thechopshophairstudio.com and or call 865-525-4240 to book your next visit to go and get your hair did. Located at 1206 North Central Street, Knoxville, Tennessee, Chop Shop Hair Studios. Stop by and tell them McGill and Jamie sent you to have one more for the good guys.
On the motorbikes, after, Mike would come down and do NAM, and then do enough business, then we go play on the trace on the motorbikes. So this particular year, I think it was 07, we ride all the way down the trace, because the first 40 miles is just heaven for a motorcycle. It's, all these sweepers and nice turning stuff and blah, blah, blah. And one year I got saved because I came ripping around this corner after I had avoided a cow. And there's a state trooper sitting there, and I'm obviously just flying. And I just stop and pull up right in front of him. And he's like, "Son," I said, "there's a cow up there in the middle of the road. I was looking for you." "Oh, okay." Away he went. Oh, shit. So anyway, non sequitur.
Dodge that bullet.
Yes. So we go all the way down, because after the 40 miles, then it just turns into a straight path. So we go down to Tupelo, take a right, cross Mississippi in the crisp, wonderful July air. Yeah. And this is one of the times I really hated Jim's guts. We stopped for gas and, go in, buy multiple Gatorades, whatever. And I'd seen him do something at the cooler, where they got bags of ice. We come out, and it's finally time to go. And, it's going to be more heat. And Jim goes to the cooler and pulls his helmet out. And I went, "You genius bastard."
Oh, you motherfucker.
So he couldn't see for 20 minutes. So he had to ride with it. But his head was cool.
Yeah.
So nonetheless, anyway, then we rode to Clarksdale. And we stayed at this place. And this is where the music history crap kicks back in. We stayed at a place called the Riverside Motel. And the Riverside Motel used to be the Negro Hospital in Clarksdale. When it was decommissioned, the guy who ran it, whose name, everybody called him Rat, but his last name was Ratliff. His mother was a woman named Z.L. Hill. She got it. It became like a motel / hostel for musicians. And everybody in town rehearsed in the basement.
Oh.
So this Rat fella knew everybody. The only guy he didn't know in Clarksdale was Howlin' Wolf. And the reason he didn't know Howlin' Wolf, which I'll go on to why he's my all-time musical hero, was, for example, he didn't have the blues. His parents, he didn't have the blues. He wasn't an orphan. This is if you want to find what the blues is, he wasn't an orphan. His parents just didn't want him. And they handed him off to this really abusive uncle. So anyway, that's the reason Rat didn't know him. But he knew Muddy. He knew Sonny Boy Williams, yada, 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 all the cats.
Yeah.
So we get there, we're, 4 white guys piling off our Euro trash bikes, sopping, sweaty, whatever. But, Mike and Jim had met Rat the year previous and had stayed there for a week. And we're coming in and yeah, I'm schlepping my stuff. And he goes, "I'll put you in Ike's room." And I went, "Rocket 88? And he goes, "You know about Rocket 88? I went, "Yeah, I know about Rocket 88. So when we decamp later on into the office, finger quote, where there's a wheezing windy unit doing way less than a job than what yours is, keeping it down to crisp 88 maybe, with a ceiling fan going. All the keys to all the rooms are up here, but none of them match. It's like a keychain collection. But he's got this big-ass bookshelf with all these books about jazz and blues. And I start pulling them off. Every one of them is signed to Rat. And it turns out,
He really did know all these people.
Dude, I'm reading this book called Escape from the Delta, and it's talking about the motel at the front end of it. And everybody came from. So anyway, I I stayed up every night, like imbibing and just interrogating him as hard as I could, just like anybody else would that wants to know the stories about the songs and the people, right?
And he was probably tickled to death to tell you all about it.
So about the fourth night in, he just gets kind of serious because we've been having a great time, and I'm like, man, thank you for putting up with this obnoxious white boy, blah 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 blah. I felt like a carpetbagger the whole time.
Yeah.
And then he just kind of gets serious, and he looks at me and he goes, the crossroads ain't roads. I went, no, I didn't know that. He goes, it's railroad tracks. I went, huh, that's kind of neat. And then he leans in and goes, you want to go?
Oh, shit.
And that was those the first two thoughts in my mind. And I mean, I get a chill, and I'm like, my first thought is like, this thing could be real. And I'm like, nah, I'm cool. I'm good. And he's like, okay, I don't want to accidentally meet anybody, and surely not accidentally sign anything. I don't want to, Morgan Freeman, actually he had a restaurant there called Madidi, but he's the guy that also owns that. There's a club down there called Ground Zero, which it's perfectly named because, dude, that is ground zero for what changed Western music.
Right.
It is, and I can't remember the name of the plantation, but that's where everybody finger quote worked there. But at night it was like the Berkeley of the blues. And but back to Howlin' Wolf, why he's my guy. So I've read lots. I've seen all kinds of documentaries. There's one where a guy's standing in front of the woods, but you can see the path going off, and he's like, that's the way he ran when he decided he'd had his last beating. So he ran away when he was 13. So somehow between 13 and he wound up in the military, and he never shipped out, but he worked the docks in Mobile. And having a giant, strong guy, if you're loading ships to fight World War II, probably came in pretty handy. Mm-hmm. So then anyway, I don't know. I have no idea how he matriculated and somehow became part of Sam Phillips's orbit. So then he winds up recording for Sun. Sam sells his contract to Chess Records in Chicago. Obviously, he has to travel from Memphis to Chicago, which I'm thinking, okay, he packs everything he has in a car, his instruments. He's got to have a large sum of money on him because at that point, most black folks weren't doing a lot of banking.
Yeah.
So he goes to Chicago, gets set up. He's got to rebuild his world. This is where he finds Hubert Sumlin, who basically became the prototype of what a rock guitar player is. You play rhythm while the guy's mouth is going. There's a breath. You play a fill. This kind of thing is what became the norm. Which, side note on Hubert, I'm going to say that Keith probably made Mick chip in, but Mick and Keith paid for Hubert's funeral, which to me is only fair. Anyway, so when he gets to Chicago, he buys himself a little house in a middle-class black neighborhood and, gets his life going again, builds his band, blah, 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 blah. And here's the part that kills me. Do you know what he did then? He taught himself to read.
Really? Wow.
It's a gut punch every time.
Oh, man.
I tell that story because, and then he started reading contracts.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
but I mean, that is.
Now, didn't he? And he paid for little Walter's funeral.
Oh, he did? I did not know.
So. I think that's right.
But I mean, that, you know, and this is.
But they all said he was a stand-up.
Mm-hmm.
He was a real man, you know.
Oh, well, I mean,
a champion,
there's
will,
like,
you know.
I've seen a documentary where his daughters are going, oh, he'd go to Paris and bring us this back and that, you know. And, you know. But, yeah, for my money, he's the dude.
Yeah.
And.
Well, you just think about that. I mean, you know, I said something earlier that the world was a lot bigger back then. And a lot of folks are like, what's this hayseed talking about? You know, well, there wasn't a phone app.
Right.
You didn't have Delta Sky Miles. You didn't jump on the internet.
Oh, I know.
I mean, this, you know, as you so well said, you know, wasn't like black people were doing a lot of banking back then.
Oh, no.
And travel by himself, for himself, you know, all that way. Sure. And hey, Chicago and going back to the world's a lot bigger, Mississippi to Chicago wasn't what is it now? When you make that drive.
Oh, dude, that's going to be a 2-lane road most of the way.
Yes, exactly. So that's going to be a week. That's going to be a week's drive versus a day and a half drive of interstates now.
And then, you know,
I mean, to get to Cincinnati back in that time from here was
and here's my
12 hours.
This will be my one nod to being woke. And we've come so far now that the NAACP has issued a warning for black people traveling in Florida.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And that's all I'll say. But
yeah, no, it's a lot of things are better, but a lot of them are
as bad
still,
as worse.
Yeah,
but
still the same.
I won't. I'm going to turn to the light.
Yeah. Well, we got to.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the black folks' biggest champion, and as far as I'm concerned, we don't even have to limit it to black people. But one of our biggest champions is mankind. From being mankind is, you know, that's exactly what Dr. King would want us to do.
Yes, sir.
You know, so you can't begat hate with hate. You got to begat hate with love.
Okay, speaking of the great Dr. King. So this trip to Clarksdale. So we've done Clarksdale. Then we get back on the motorbikes. And I rode up Highway 61.
Yeah.
To Memphis. Past Tunica. Didn't do no gambling. And then we go from the Riverside Motel, which, albeit it was clean, and Rat did a great job. And then we pull into the Peabody in Memphis. And I about break my neck in the elevator because the ducks had just gone upstairs. So anyway, so we go from Clarksdale to the Peabody. And
did you get you any ribs at Rendezvous?
No, I didn't. But where we did go was, it's the other. Oh God, they had a show on our network. Oh, it's the other barbecue place. Then we, did Graceland, which I found to be depressing. I found the jungle room that I built in my head was so much cooler.
Right.
And it was depressing to me because that poor man, all he could do is walk around those walls. He built this insane thing that he could never escape.
Yeah.
Then,
never thought about it that way.
And yeah, but I mean, there's like the little shooting range out back where, that's where he and the Memphis Mafia would go and shoot their guns. I'm going, God, that's sad. But the next morning, the last thing we did before we hit 40 to go the long straight route We went to the Stax Museum.
Oh, yeah. It's
Dude.
tremendous.
So you've been there?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Okay, so
I went there, and most folks would think I would probably want to be in who I am and what I sing, and mostly I would want to see Sun. I wanted to see Stax.
I saw Sun at the best time.
We couldn't do both at the time that I had went, so I had to pick, and I was just no. I got to see
the best
Stax.
time to go to Sun is 3 a.m, where you can where it's quiet, and you can just look at the building and the neon and just go, man, I don't need to be inside. I just want to see the thing, and because I hear it,
the beacon.
And,
I definitely wanted to see it then, and I definitely would still love to go to it, but we had a choice, and
you choiced right.
I did. I totally did.
So obviously you've been in there.
The stuff came out of there.
So here's
tremendous.
So you go in, and they've got those like little audio showers, where you step under this thing, and it's like it begins to talk to you, and it's somehow in your head, and it's stereo at the same time. And whoever did that stuff is a stone genius. So after about 20 minutes in there, I'm going, God, I feel like an idiot. I'm just standing here crying.
Oh, I got very emotional in it.
So,
but I remember this one thing, and I don't want to hijack it, but
go right ahead.
One of the things I remember in the museum was
the map,
the playback speakers.
Oh yeah,
they were movie theater speakers.
Yeah.
So if you wondered why they had that gut crunch to that sound, they were listening. They were doing playbacks through fucking 2 huge movie stereo
this is a huge
speakers.
part of why I turned out like I did. My old man, that stereo I was talking about, he had the cabinets made, but the speakers came out of the Pineville Theater.
No shit.
Full range 15s with big ports under them.
Yeah.
And it will be revived. But out of all the stuff in there.
Wow.
Because here's the thing. I was moving so slow. We were there for 3 hours, and I'd made it like a third of the way. Mm. And they're finally like, man, we got to go home. And I'm like, But to me, the most impressive, or the thing that floored me the most, did you see the map of the neighborhood with the pins in it? Mm-hmm. So you've got this, it's like a big map.
Macklemore.
Yeah. Well, College and Macklemore is the intersection.
Yeah.
But there's like a 30 by 20 or whatever range of the blocks. And it's got pins in it from everybody in the neighborhood. The only people that I can recall that weren't from the neighborhood, there's Sam and Dave, who were flown down from New York. And I've seen an interview with Sam where he was like going, man, I cried most of the way because I thought we were getting sent down to the miners. I just didn't realize that's where the rocket was.
Yeah.
And Otis, who was from Macon. Everybody else
was from the
neighborhood. Isaac Hayes, David, I can't remember who was Isaac's right.
David Porter.
The guy that was in the bathroom was going, I got this riff. And he's in the bathroom going, hold on, I'm coming. Yeah. But even the white guys, Duck and Steve Cropper were from the neighborhood. And the thing that most people say,
Aretha.
Yeah, well, her daddy was the preacher.
Yeah.
So
incredible, man.
But that's the thing, though, is all these people go, oh, it's amazing how much talent was there. And my response is, no, it's everywhere. It just doesn't get a chance to blossom.
That's a good point.
You look at this town. You look at what's come out of it.
Well, how do you see it? without seeing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like, okay, so this kid's super talented and that kid over there. Well, they're not running around like fucking unicorns. It ain't like they're,
No, I know that.
Noticeable right off the get.
But I think so much of it has to do with.
No, I'm siding with you on this. I'm just saying it's not, but they are there.
But it's going to. Here's the old person speaking now about how sad it's going to be.
Speak up. Can't hear you.
Man, there's going to be a horrid dearth. I get to use that word. What's the word I'm looking for? Or to quote a great man who, here's the backstory on this. This little old lady was trying to get her cable fixed, and she kept leaving messages. And this is one of these things where you get the compilation of the recordings. She starts out, she's so, hey, my cable's on. Like, by the fourth call, look, by the last one is the neighbor, and you just hear her in the background going, and the guy's just going, look, y'all need to get out here soon, or it's going to be sad, sad, sad. And it's going to be sad, 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 because there ain't no more great bands, because there aren't kids that are bored enough, that are together enough. Back to this town. One of my dearest friends, just from that era, dude, so I'm getting to teach now, right. And as I'm a unfrozen caveman adjunct professor for college age kids, one of the great things I get to do is, musically speaking, I don't hear lots of stuff that those varmints are listening to, and God knows they ain't heard parts per million of what's in my head. But one of the best things I get to do is I get to play. The fun part's picking out which record. I'm either going to pick something from Head Trippin' Every Key, or, I'll play Super Drag. And I'll go, you tell me where this band is from.
Yeah.
And then, and it's like, England, blah, 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 blah. And and I'll let them, and then it's finally, where are they from? And I go, a place called Farragut.
Yeah.
And they are, they still get together, and you get to hear and see it, I
always thought it was very interesting with the Stax story was, that all it took was a banker that didn't know anything about music and his sister who knew everything about the neighborhood,
Estelle,
to come up with the recipe of.
Well, I mean, and they were
doing what they did,
wanted to make it. They were trying to make it a country place.
Yeah.
But they picked the wrong but the righteous neighborhood.
Well, and thank God they didn't have a clue.
Oh, right? That right there is the secret.
You know what I'm saying?
They didn't mess it up.
Yeah, they totally let it organically do what it.
That's how I wound up sitting in these chairs. I didn't have a clue.
Yeah. Yeah, there's for everybody listening, there's a great documentary called The Stax Record Story that PBS did several years ago. While a lot of those people that we just mentioned were still alive,
right,
and were able to have sound bites and clips.
And if you go down the rock, for my money, the shot fired across the bow, the first one is Tom Dowd and the Language of Music, because all this stuff, which I'll get to how it relates to everything. It starts with Atlantic, and that's back to the Ray recordings I was talking about.
Sure, yeah.
So what Ahmet and Nishui were doing in New York, they would do their business during the day, and then they would push everything out to the sides, and that's where those Ray records got done. But not only were they, Atlantic, Tom Dowd started there as a runner or as an assistant. And Tom Dowd was ultimately the engineer at Atlantic. But the thing is, when he got there, he was a kid of about 15 or so. And then World War II spun up. So by this point, he was taking physics classes to help his recording chops. He wound up being drafted, and since he was a gifted physics student, he wound up getting shoved into a thing called the Manhattan District. The Manhattan District then became the Manhattan Project. Tom Dowd was at the Bikini Atoll when they set off Little Boy or whatever. So the deal is, after the war, he comes home, and it's tough to know who was first, but they were in cahoots. He and his buddy Lester Polfus, a guy from Milwaukee or up in that area, his stage name was Les Paul, and it's hard to say who had their first multi-track recorder going at the same time.
Yeah.
And the other thing about Les Paul is Les Paul was also confabbing with Paul Bigsby and Leo Fender on what made, they were all trying to crack the code. Side note, go to the Country Music Hall of Fame, because I was there for that tracking session I was talking about. I went there with a buddy of mine to see Bill Lloyd interrogate a guy named Richard Bennett, not the bluegrass Richard Bennett, but the one that used to be Neil Diamond's guitar player. But once he co-wrote Forever in Blue Jeans, that's what paid for his house in Nashville. Anyway, but when we went to the Country Music Hall of Fame, we're walking around and I'm seeing, all these garish guitars and this and that. And there's like this funky looking Gibson I see, and I about wreck my neck. And my buddy's that's with me is going, what is it? I said, you need to come and look at this. And she's like, what is this? It doesn't have a sign. I went, it's the Log.
Oh, so it was prototype.
It's the first solid body thing. Yeah. Anyway, back to Tom Dowd. Tom Dowd's at Atlantic, and that's, it's basically his story. He tracked Charlie Parker, Lester Young, all the way up through. He made records. He's the guy that was tracking Skynyrd, and the Allman Brothers. And I think in that movie at the end of it, there's this young kid named Bonamassa that he's making a record with. But all that. So once Atlantic got overwhelmed, they subcontracted to a place in Muscle Shoals called Fame.
Yeah.
And then Fame, the rhythm section, those guys. The Swampers, Rick went to the Swampers and said, hey, we just cut a deal with blah, blah, blah. And they're like, well, we've gone out on our own and we're talking to Wexler. And that's where Rick says, from then on it was war. But I mean, you got those guys, excuse me, Patterson Hood's daddy, David, here in Mavis thing, little David.
Jimmy Johnson. Well, I tell you, there's if you think you've heard it all, you haven't.
Oh, no.
Stop fooling yourself.
But that's what I'm saying, though, is it all filters hither and yon.
Yeah.
And
well, the Stax thing was amazing to me because I got to see, God rest his soul, the Nabro. He had that documentary on VHS.
Uh-huh.
And he said, you need to watch this. He said,
yes,
you like this. And he always called me Michael. I said, Michael.
Him and Mark Dunn.
Yeah. Mark Dunn, same way. He said, Michael, I know you like this stuff, but this is where you need to watch this.
Go to the mouth of the river.
Yeah. And he would bring me stuff all the time. And my life in music, I had always been kind of like you, right place, right time. Something struck a nerve, an interest. And I always had really good people.
Oh yeah,
feeding me what I was supposed to have.
Well, and I think,
I just became like this sponge,
right?
And I just wring out and then just absorb all of it, the more of it that I could get again.
I mean, it's like these my kids. I go, "What kind of music do you like?" And I say, "Good."
Yeah,
I like good music.
Yeah,
and
don't care so much for the bad.
Well, I mean, there's not that much. If I ever get something in my head that I can't get out, my go-to is generally Jimmy Glimmer and the Fireballs. Do you know their hit?
I do not. We're all going to have homework after this.
I can hear that horrid, flabby, quasi-fuzz bass. There's a crazy little shack down on the tracks.
Oh.
God, what a horrid piece of shit that is. and it's not really that bad until you hit the bridge. Espresso coffee, mighty good. Anyway.
I have no idea what you just said.
It's from Sugar Shack.
Oh, okay.
It's the bridge of Sugar Shack.
I know nothing.
Oh, man.
I'm such a dummy.
But, I mean.
Please don't fail me.
No, because if I hear Sugar Shack, then the best cure for me is hearing Jello Biafra's voice go, God told me to skin you alive. And that reminds me, one of my Facebook friends, I won't say what it is, but he was talking about a kid giving him shit about being a poser because he's an older feller like us, but he's wearing a Dead Kennedy shirt. And the kid goes, you poser. And he leaned into his face and said, God told me to skin you alive. And the kid ran away.
He probably didn't even get it.
And the other thing is like, people think punk, man. Back to the other thing. East Bay Ray, cleanest guitar sound ever. It's just, there's no distortion there, pal.
Yeah.
It's all twang and verb.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've been so, and I rarely ever say, the word, it's more like BLESST. I've been 3 feet away from Miles Davis. The shit I've gotten to hear is astonishing.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with, you talk about harmonies? Are you familiar with Jellyfish? Okay.
Rick Wolf turned me on a Jellyfish.
I saw Jellyfish at 328. They did it. They did it live. They may have missed some keyboard parts, but dude, and some of the orchestral things, but them harmonies were there.
Yeah.
I mean, and the thing about that band, it's like they took all my favorite stuff and put it in a blender. I hear Beatles, Beach Boys, Nielsen, Simon and Garfunkel, just this fever dream of the best of the late 60s and 70s. Oh, those first 2 records are so badass. And then Jason, what's his name, the guitar player, made a record called Presents, Author Unknown. Oh, man. Google that, would you? Because I need to know the guy's last name. There's so much. It's all leaking out. I don't know.
Well, again, there's, you like to hear, you hear it all the time. People are like, oh, I've heard that. I've done this.
Jason Faulkner.
Jason Faulkner, thank you. He played the guitar on the second record, I believe.
But you haven't.
Oh, no.
You know what I mean?
Oh, no.
Everybody's, oh, I've heard that. I'll bet you this. And no, you haven't.
Well, I mean, first, okay. So the Dillards was the first thing that I got lucky on being at. Then later on, due to my oldest sister and a friend of hers, her older brother was a guy named Stephen Gudis, who ran a thing called NTAM, which is that did all the concerts in the Southeast. We got to go to Greenville, South Carolina. I can't remember which one, but we get to go, and we're getting the full ride, passes, blah, 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 see Stills and Young.
Wow.
It was like a gig or 2 gigs before Neil got a sore throat and split. Here's what I'm still bitter about. My oldest sister's like, oh, nobody goes to see the opener. The opener was Poco.
Oh.
Poco was pushing their record at the time, Rose of Cimarron. For my money, that night, they sang better than the Eagles. And God knows Rusty Young played steel better than Felder.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's sad about Poco, which back to my buddy Mike Webb that played piano, like what's left of Poco is kind of based in Nashville. It's called Cimarron 615. And they're going to be doing a blue plate. And I'm trying to find them a place to play on that day. They loved the open chord because Mike played the memorial thing I was talking about, or Mike liked it. And he's like, we're trying to blah, blah. Anyway. But the other thing about Poco that most people don't realize is that was the farm team for all your Eagles bass players.
Yeah.
For all your badass high harmony singing bass player dudes. And, you know.
Well, when are they playing the blue plate?
I can't remember. It's in, I think it's the 22nd of June. I'm not sure. I'll get back to you on that. And
yeah, let us know.
Well,
we'll put that out there.
I mean, I've tried to call Mike a couple times, but the other thing is like, I gotta find him try to find him a venue for that night, because the open chords having which tribute? It's like an ACDC. It's some tribute band. So anyway,
it's got to be something. It's just fucking horrible. Probably.
Well, it ain't Poco, and and that's the other thing. Is like, and for me, growing up as a hillbilly, as a Beatle nut, people can throw shade on the Eagles all day long, dude. Awesome harmonies, badass rocking.
Yeah.
Same, and back to the same thing. It was like
songwriters.
Well, I mean, going back to like the closest thing after that was, the Byrds. The songs were
different.
I know, but then once you got your CSNY, then the rocking started happening again.
Yeah,
and you still had Deja Vu. That sadly, if you look at the Beatles, it's like that's an insane thing to sustain for that long. No wonder they hated each other at the end of that run.
Yeah,
or whatever. They just needed a break, man.
Yeah, well, yeah,
but
the world's largest touring acts and the most popular touring act in the world.
But I mean, so and
all you got to do is come out with new shit.
Well, but so here's the thing: as a guitar player, being a huge Neil and everybody else fan, and what he's known for, I can truly say the first White Falcon I ever saw was Paul Cotton playing with Poco. Now, mind you, I saw all kinds of crazy shit once Steve and Neil got up there. That's one of those Firebird things. Yeah. Oh, that's the,
I just like that White Falcon guitar, man.
Well, but if you don't want it to feed back, Penguin. It's the midget version.
Okay.
And
I did not know that.
It's like a quasi Les Paul with the White Falcon gigantic headstock.
I'm not good enough to have one of them anyway.
You're good enough to buy whatever you can get your hands on, pal.
I ain't buying shit.
Oh, I don't know how many amazing guitars are in somebody's collection.
Yeah.
It's like, man, there's stuff that's, I've got this old, back when Lynn's Guitars was around, and there was a fellow there named Eddie downstairs. He was over the moon to trade me my pretty good shape 72 Telly for this old red thing that it was a bad refin, and I wish I could recreate what the neck pickup was shortened out, and it had like a Seymour Duncan quarter pound. But at the time, this is how long ago it was, it had a spaghetti logo on the headstock. This is how old I am. This was before there were any reissues.
This when the Dead Sea was only still sick?
Yes.
Okay.
So I got that thing, and I then, as opposed to refinning it, I just started covering it with stickers. And it's since had, new pickups put in it, but it's a 60. If I were to refin it now, it's a 5-figure guitar.
Yeah.
But it's been used as a scotch to change a tire. It's been used as a weapon to defend myself in a club, and it's just festoon, it's just covered with crap. It's been refret. Rick Asher did a great job on refretting it.
Yeah.
And, but that's the only one that.
And what is it?
It's a 60 Telecaster.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a
nice.
Your fans can't see this, but I'll find it for you here. But it's a beast. Jamie, you might have seen it because I used it to teach with a lot.
Probably did. It's a long time ago.
Well, yeah, we've established that.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Oh yeah, I've seen that guitar.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got my Husker Du backstage pass on it.
Yeah.
Where the Dopes opened up for the Husker Dus.
Yeah.
And Soul Asylum, I do believe. But it's a hoss, man. And actually it got to be second guitar in case Todd did something crazy when they opened up for NRBQ, and it's just laying on the floor, and I feel this presence behind me, and I turn around and Big Al's bent over going, "What is that?" And I explained it to him. He's like,
"It's a guitar, man.
That's really cool." Which, okay. That's enough. So for me, the peak of the wave for the Dirt Clod stuff was we got to do some dates opening for NRBQ.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, that they were, that is what, God knows they probably starved and who knows what they had to go through. But for me, they are
I remember
greatest band ever.
One of the spectaculars you did at NRBQ Christmas song.
Well, they did a whole Christmas record.
Yeah, but, they didn't get to play Mike McGill's Christmas Spectacular.
Well, I know that. And what's important is you can still get in the suit, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Fuck yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I can get in the suit. Hey, folks, if you're looking for a cool, eclectic place with an outside patio, plenty of UT sports games, cold beer, and live music on the weekends, then look no further than one of our homes away from home, Trailhead Beer Market, located at 1317 Island Home Avenue in South Knoxville, Tennessee. Trailhead is South Knoxville's first beer market, situated on the banks of the Tennessee River and in the backyard of the Urban Wilderness and Iams Nature Center. You can find more info on Facebook and Instagram about specials, live acts, and the goings-on, and be sure to tell them McGill and Jamie sent you, and have one more for the good guys.
No, that's another facet of what makes our town so kick-ass.
I think so too.
And it's important to hang on to it. And God knows what sort of dumb shit I did in my youthy years, but the one, I guess the thing I try to burn into my kids' brains that I probably shouldn't say to them is this is the central tenet to get through life. Show up, even if you're not prepared, because you don't know what sort of opportunity may arise.
Yeah.
And the equal and possibly more important part of that, don't be a dick.
Yeah. That's a good one.
And
because you never know what kind of doors open for you.
Well, I mean, and
anybody can be a dick.
No shit.
And it takes somebody to not be one.
Right.
That's trying.
And the other thing is like, ultimately you look back and there's like 3 to 5 people that really made an impression on you.
Yeah.
That, sadly, before everything went horribly wrong for Bill Cosby, he was my 2 earliest true big influences were Bill Cosby records and the Beatles. So years and years later, that poor woman that endured me for my birthday got me tickets to go see Bill Cosby. And this was before we knew what we know now.
Right.
But his kid had been gunned down like the year before.
Yeah.
And there's an empty chair on the stage and there's a shirt over it with how his kid greeted everybody, which was "Hello, friend." And, but he told this story about one of the things he liked to do as a child in the tenement they were in or whatever. They had a big gas stove. And what he would do when nobody was around, he would fill the room with gas and then throw a match at the stove. And it would just be like, he said, oh man, it was great. My mother would scream and cry, oh no, don't. And, as my dad would beat me like, we're going to all die. And he said, it wasn't until my grandfather caught me doing that, where my grandfather just said, don't do that when I'm around. And that's when he realized I could die.
Yeah.
So I'm not getting across that important a data, but I'm just trying to provide
don't be a dick.
Some guideposts as to, because man, that karma thing is so real.
It is. And it's a real motherfucker.
And
if you ain't listening or don't believe it.
Well, and then years later, you look back and you're like, oh, man, I was definitely a dick that day.
Yeah.
And that, I can never approach this person for help or whatever.
I mean, we've all done it. We've all had our times. Me for sure as well.
You're a dick all the time, really.
Yeah, well,
but but you get to that point.
Not everybody can do that either.
But these days people put lovable in front of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
dress it up a little bit.
Yeah. Put a little lipstick on the pig.
On the dick.
Yeah. No. Hey, 2 things.
Family show. Yeah. Yes.
3 things. There's 2 kinds of people in this. Actually, no, I'm going to save that one. So we have gotten to do a few things together as far as the music goes. One of those being a thing that I had a blast doing, that you put on and, wrangled, created, however you want to say it, was the Easy Rider.
Oh yes,
thing at the shed,
man,
that we did that night, and it was amazing, man.
If you're out there, get your guy to call me.
Yeah,
I need to get back in that room.
So we did the. Phil set up a thing where he did the soundtrack from the Easy Rider movie.
So the premise was, bless Scott Maddox's heart. He was like, "Hey, I was like, I ain't got no band, got no band right now. Blah blah blah. I don't know." And he's like, "Well, do something." And I was like, going, place, motorbike place. Oh, it's obvious. And what was cool is it was kind of a We Are the World, do the soundtrack to the Easy Rider thing. Who all was like Etheridge, Abernathy, you,
RB?
RB, oh yeah, the RB.
He killed fucking,
well,
when he was another fucking person.
Well,
I've seen, and I've done that a few times and not knowing, but that night he was RB and then he was completely somebody else.
Well, it could be because the other half of his brain got to be me and I was playing the guitar part.
Yeah, that's true.
So when you think about doing, we did It's All Right, Ma, I'm Only Bleeding.
Yeah.
And
fucking
that tune is crushed it. You know, so it's up and then down, but you still got the time going. That was tough.
Yeah.
I mean, but we pulled it off.
Oh, you guys killed it. That was the highlight of the night.
And then
I sang Don't Bogart That Joint.
And gigantic.
So I had it pretty fucking easy.
Gigantic shout out to Roger Schmidt, who was keeping a bunch of his stuff at the place.
Yeah.
And so we got to play with the real C3 and a real Leslie.
Yeah.
And Alan's buddy, Charlie Rule, who is a crazy badass piano player. He got to drive the organ. And man, I don't care what sort of plug-in, module, blah, blah, blah you got. You being in the same room with a Hammond and a Leslie there's a reason they put them in church.
Can't reproduce them.
Because, dude, it's a religious experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great night. I enjoyed that night. It was well done.
It was luck,
Well, hell.
But and as I tell anybody, I'd rather be lucky than good. And when you can combine those things, it's a powerful thing.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right. So we got to do that, and I got to be a part of that. And I don't know. I'm trying to remember if that might have been the first place. No. Fuck off.
Okay. I got
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
No, I was just trying to remember as well if that was like, we knew a lot of the same folks, but we're just, our paths hadn't crossed a whole lot. But we did that, and then you did a Christmas thing one year when it was still at Barley's. And then we did, you sat in on a couple of the Cat House Prophet things, I think.
I did?
I think so.
Okay.
We did one with the Headhunters down there at the little theater down there.
And
where was that at? Is it at Rock?
It's because it was the theater where they paid for it with all the money from the cleanup for the ash spill.
Yeah.
Which it's west of here.
It was like Roane County or somewhere down in that area. It was,
and my back to the whole, there's nothing like being in the room. Because first off, just getting to know those dudes.
Oh, the Headhunters, yeah.
Because they are as real as the deal gets. Oh, and they've been playing together, as the song says, since they was babies.
Yeah, completely.
But and
that was...
and as a guitar player, everybody, the grail is a 58 or a 59 burst. How many people have actually gotten to hold one in their hands?
Yeah.
And Greg Martin was kind enough to let me fondle that thing. And the other thing, like he showed up, he and his...
and wasn't that like Steve Gaines's guitar?
No, it was given to him by Hank Jr.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, he showed up a while later with his buddy Boone Froggett at Mike and Maria's. They played at Lost and Found. And I went over there.
Really?
I was going to try and play with them, but man, I was I was like, I am sick. I got to go home.
Yeah.
So that's where a respiratory failure got me out of the room.
Well, he's a badass.
But here's the other thing that most people don't get to experience anymore either is
pedals.
No, and that's the thing. It's 100
pedals.
Here's the recipe, folks.
So Marshall Plexi.
It's 100-watt Plexi with 2 tubes taken out, so he's not killing people.
Turn it around backwards.
Yep, but that's the thing is like you understand what the fuss is all about when you hear that guy play a 58 burst.
He plays all that different.
Yeah.
Everything on those records that we loved when we were teenagers, played every bit of that shit and sound just like it did on the record. And you look and there ain't a fucking pedal nowhere.
No,
it's in that son bitch's
and the
left
X factor
in
is
his hands, and it's just. But and you see guys that are great players, and you guys can't see my fingers right now, but you'll see players that have got a lot of movement in their left hand, so their fingers are coming up off the fretboard, and they're just, they just look like they're flying around. This guy's.
I believe the word you're looking for, the technical term for that is meadly.
I said, man, they're running around the neck of that thing like a chicken trying to pick up corn.
And the technical term for the Chuck Berry
ain't no part of nothing.
The Chuck Berry lick is a burn-any. Yeah.
Well, this guy's. You can't see him moving.
No.
You can't see him going up and down. That's how little wasted effort there is. He's just amazing.
To quote the great R.S. Field, he's got more soul than a shoe factory.
Yeah.
And
that was a highlight for me.
Oh, so the part where the wave peaked. So and the other dude that don't get enough props is standing on the other side with 2 basemans, and a real deal ancient telly. And the cool thing is, his main amp that he played, because one's the same deal. He's got 2. Both of them have 2 amps one for spare if something goes south. On Richard's amp,
yeah, this is great.
On tape, apparently the way Richard pronounces it, I think it's the MAIN-EST 1. It's the mainest one. And I don't know if it's the main one or the meanest, but it's the mainest one. But if you recall, they did like encore. And the other dudes are like they're ready to leave. And Richard's just standing there like, ain't done. And then he turned around. What was it? And he just screamed at the rest of them, down? And they're like, oh, yeah. And they played Don't Let Me Down by the Beatles. It was like being on the fucking roof.
Yeah.
It was awesome. I cannot express, because all them guys are singing, and they are badass harmony singers.
Yeah. They won Vocal Group of the Year there back in the CMA days.
Well,
I sat right out there in that fucking driveway in a 79 Ford Fiesta.
Go on.
And
picking on Nashville. And I wore 2 of them out. I mean, every time, and I would sing, and I'd sing parts, and I'd sing that part and this part. And I just freaking loved it, And another thing that they did that would, you get to time travel when they played Spirit in the Sky.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They are great Americans.
Freyed. That's 3 syllables if you're counting at home.
Which one?
Freyed.
Yeah.
The drummer.
Yes.
And that fucker, he's playing a set of drums that are the oldest set that Ludwig themselves has ever seen in its complete form.
and it has the Metcalfe County High drum head.
Yeah.
One of them.
The two bass drums are like, what, 20-something, 22-inch?
Yeah.
They're these giant, but they've got all the original hardware, and they're 1922 or some crazy shit like that drums.
Yeah.
And tours with them.
With skin heads, right?
With skin heads. Yeah. And the other one touring with a 58, and the other one with a 52 telly, and the bassmans, and I guess the bass player's playing. He's probably playing a precision, an OP bass of some sort. But that was a pretty surreal moment. We played the first time I ever got to play with them. I didn't really get to meet them that much. It was back there. It was a Drunk Uncle show way back when, and they called us out on the stage with their encore, and we sang.
Yeah, but you motherfuckers.
Hey Jude. We sang Hey Jude with them.
Sing. That was a singing band.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, we sang Hey Jude with them. And that was pretty surreal, just thinking as a kid, I'm that good. I can do that, and then you get to share the stage with them. So.
Man, that's the other thing. It's like
pretty cool.
There's no better way to learn how to sing than screaming with the headphones on, and then somebody punches you in the arm and goes, "You've got to stop."
That's the way you do it, kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to say all that, we've had some good times together. One of the greatest, and I told you this the other night, was during the pandemic. You knew what I was facing with my mom and my dad, and the health problems and all that stuff, along with everything else that the whole world was facing.
Right.
And I just get a call out of the blue from this guy. I hadn't seen him or talked to him probably in person or on the phone since we did one of those shows way back when. And
I was asking about my money.
Yeah. It's like, where's my fucking $50? I said, as long as I owe you, you won't go broke.
Yeah, there you go.
But no, all kidding aside, it would just, it just tickled me to death, man. And, and we started talking about old things and, everything we talked about today, from cars to motorcycles to wrestling to, whatever, music. And, it was just all, it was all really good. So I'm glad you reached out during that time, and, we'll keep this going. And, so something we ask everybody, would you want to do another one sometime?
What, one of these?
Would you want to come back to the honky tonk when I got all the lipstick on my pig? Dude,
I will come and repeat every one of these things that I've said and not remember any of it. Because that's the way I'm headed.
Well, have you, now you were doing some type of project here a little while ago you were telling me about. Have you got anything coming up? Are you doing anything other than you're going to come out and play with me on a couple of things?
Yeah. Oh, that'll be like stealing. That'll be fun.
Okay.
So last year.
Well, just where somebody might be able to see you if you got anything going
sadly,
on.
Sadly, I don't. So the one thing I've got to shill here, because I ain't got nothing to sell. So I'll run down the long, short story of it. So back shortly after, this was like as the vid was just kind of ramping up, and they sent me away from. I may have still been writing TV stuff. But anyway, I get people bark about the Facebook all the time. And one of the reasons I hang on to the Facebook is it's the only way I can remotely keep up with any of the people that I met and miss and adore on,
I agree.
Back when I was being able to travel and do music shit. And anyway, so
you just got to scroll past all that other bullshit.
Yeah.
Or block it or whatever you got to do.
Or just go, huh?
I didn't know they were such idiots.
Or what broke in your brain? Anyway, but I get a message from this woman named Sherry Smith, and she's asking me to come and play this Antlers and Acorns Songwriter Festival.
Okay.
And I'm like, ma'am, I've been writing bad music for Worst TV for 25 years, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't remember anything I've ever done. And she, it's like going back and forth.
My brain is suddenly turned into a punch bowl.
Yes. But I mean,
I remember nothing.
But she's not taking no for an answer. And I'm like, call me. Let me convince you. So we get on the phone, and within 10 minutes, it's like, oh, so-and-so? Oh, yeah. Oh, so like the third or fourth one, so-and-so? Yeah. What do you know about? Oh, yeah. So then it turns down to, it's almost like shit talking, doing nitrous hits. I mean, we are guffawing and having the best time. We wound up, the first time we got on the phone, I think we talked well over an hour. So, but at one point, I'm sitting there and I go, oh, I got a song that's kind of like that, and I pick it up like 4 bars. I said, see, I told you, I don't know any of this stuff. And then she says, well, that's fine. I've heard your stuff. You'll be great. And I went, you've heard my stuff? Where have you heard my stuff? She's like, well, you sent me that YouTube thing. I went, oh, that vast catalog of 3 whole songs that's on YouTube. She's like, yeah, play those. Those will be fine. And I'm like, well, those aren't box guitar songs. I'm gonna have to get at least a bass player and a drummer. And then I hear the words that I've never heard in my life, which are, well, that's fine. We'll get you some money in hotel rooms. And I'm like, shit.
I really got to do this now.
Yeah. And
I've been hornswoggled.
Yeah. So
flam.
So the fast forward. So that year it gets canceled.
Yeah.
Because I'd worked up the stuff with my buddies Charlie and Scott. We spent we work on it for like 4 or 5 months. Thing gets canceled. Oh, okay. Well, it's getting kicked down the road literally an entire year. We quit practicing, So about 4 months out, 4 months out or so, I hear back from Sherry, and she's like, hey, do you need a guitar player? And I'm like, no, I mean, it's a trio. I was like, so what's going on is one of her buddies is a guy named Radney Foster, who was like a hero of sorts to me. I'm
sure.
Giant. That's not maybe the woodpecker. Anyway, but
Radney Foster fan.
I've been a Foster and Lloyd fan forever, and I've been lucky enough to. I've been on the phone with Radney, but I've met Bill a few times. Super sweet dudes, weapons grade badasses, and if you look at just get on the internet and look at some of the people they've played with, what's that feller's name?
Well, I mean,
Carl Perkins. That's, Orbison, Carl Perkins, all these super legends. Anyway, but nonetheless, she's wanting to make sure that his entire band can make it. And the deal is like, so they're getting other MD gigs and music director gigs and blah blah blah. So I'm like, sure, okay. So Charlie's in Austin, and I contact Charlie, and I'm gonna, I was like, hey man, I got a Dropbox with charts and blah. He's like, well man, I'm not gonna be able to look at this stuff till about a month out because he's an audio engineer and he's a guitar player, and like any other musician, hand to mouth.
Yeah.
He said, I'll get back in touch with you, about a month out. I went, okay, cool. So here we start relearning all the stuff again, and it's getting to the, so I called Charlie in Texas. I'm like, oh, no. Charlie calls me. First off, I went, hey man, how's it going? He's like, well, I've got 7 folders of charts. I went, oh God, that sounds, like, so he's got to play guitar. I'm like, that sounds awful. He said, yeah, but I'm just calling to let you know, I got your stuff. I said, okay, good. He said, well, I just want to let you know, man, I really dig your stuff. I went, oh, that's sweet. I appreciate that. And then I get the musician version. No, man, seriously, I really dig your shit. And I was like, oh, wow, cool. Thanks. So we got to beat it down to, we're booked to play 2 45-minute sets on 2 days. So when we finally get it beat down to 45 minutes and 28 seconds, I call Charlie in Texas. I said, hey, man, we got to beat down to 45, 29, blah, 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 blah. He said, oh, man, that's great. I said, well, but we had to cut a couple songs. He's like, well, which ones? I'm like, well, the Richard, no. I tell him, he's like, well, I don't want to piss you off, but some of these they just don't speak to me. I'm like, dude, I don't care. He's like, no, seriously, I don't want to upset you. I'm like, man, at this point, I hate them all, and I just want this done, okay? So he's like, I said, well, what doesn't speak to you? He said, well, man, that Richard Petty song. I went, hold on. He's like, yeah. I went, have you considered where we're playing? He's like, Boone. I went, Boone where? North Carolina. I went, yeah. I said, you ever seen Richard Petty's car? Yeah. What color is it? Blue. There's a word that goes in front of that blue. What's that? Carolina blue.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, fast forward on up to the first day we're booked on a Friday. It's raining. It's the land of App State.
Oh, yeah.
Kids are still in school. We perform for 4 of my friends, the sound guys and the staff. And
yeah.
Just like going, and I got a rotten tooth that's been giving me a hard time. So I'm just like, but it worked out because basically it was a great rehearsal for Charlie. And, and we got through the thing.
Sure.
Next day, it's raining cats and dogs. And we go to the.
You're just like, there ain't gonna be nobody here.
Well, and I'm like going, man, I'm just like, if it's like yesterday, I'll just go in and apologize. So I walk in the place and there's Charlie, and he doesn't say hi. He just says, go get your shit. I'm like, okay. So he helps me unload the truck, blah, 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 blah. Scott and Charlie show up. And the thing is, shame on me, I can't remember the name of the place, but apparently Saturday is where everybody in Boone takes their dog, their cat, and their kids out to eat, feed, and water them. The place is packed. And of course, it's Songwriter Festival, so it's like postage stamp size stage. Sound guy's got an iPad, and he's looking at us. We're bringing in drums and amps, and he's like, you look like you're going to be loud. And I'm like, we may be, I don't know. And he's like, well, just point your stuff at the ceiling, and I'll just put the vocals through the PI. I'm like, cool, we'll see what happens. Kismet. The stars aligned. We played a set of original music for complete strangers that got it. And at the end of it, like, a lot of people stood up.
Yeah.
And I mean, and it's like,
that's always refreshing.
I should quit now. I'd be going out on top.
Right.
That it may be the greatest gig I've ever played.
Yeah. Well, good for you, man.
Well, and so we got to do it again.
Right.
We got invited back. Or as far as I know, hadn't heard anything yay or nay yet, but yeah, that's the only thing on the books. But as it gets closer, we may start showing up someplace trying to, knock the dust off.
Yeah. Well, I think
so. I ain't got nothing to shill.
Well, let us know.
And I've got this pile of tunes that nobody's heard. So, people go, oh, we got to record these. Wow, I've recorded them all. well, it was good. I was like, nobody's heard them. They're going to be new to everybody, So that's what's going on.
Well, good.
So,
well, I'll be looking forward to maybe catching some of that, and looking forward to what did we say that date was again? I've got it written down. We'll put it back in on the edits, but yeah, the next trailhead, the third Friday of this coming month. So whatever that.
Oh no, and I have a high pressure gig coming up. I don't know when this will get out. And whoever's going to want to sit through this entire thing, man, you could beat this thing down to 20 minutes, I'm sure.
I was thinking 12.
Huh?
I was thinking 12.
Yeah. But
I'm giving you 20 minutes.
I've
putting up 2.5 hours of your shit and give you 20. You're getting 12.
Cool.
I'm just kidding.
Dense.
I'm just kidding.
But I'm going to be doing the Dylan birthday bash with Steve Horton and his son Will, and that is why I have yet to hear any of the glorious, amazing stuff you sent me, because I am trying to deal with the syncopation of a insane recording of Heart of Mine by this Blake Mills dude, which I'll play for you dudes once we're cooked. But this dude is the fever dream love child of like rock.
You were telling me about this guy.
Yeah.
I need to check that out.
It's sick. And,
Blake Mills. Have you heard of him?
No.
Well,
there you go.
To turn that thing off. No.
There's just more homework. Well, buddy, let's wrap it up.
All right. Hey,
love
bye,
you,
everybody.
Mean it.
Back at you, pal.
And Jamie, you want to do another one?
I was going to say, yeah, we can do this again.
Yeah, man.
I think we should.
Jamie, shame on me for A, not recognizing you. B, it's been a minute since we saw each other.
Yeah, it's only been 20 years and 100 pounds ago. So.
Yeah, but it's
I agree, some
but it's 50
hair.
apiece, so it's not that bad.
Yeah, well, yeah. No, yeah, I think it'd be great. I think we need to get you back. I think,
we can tell pick and grin stories.
You got some pick and grin stories we can tell.
That'd be
or better yet, we could do me and Klein. I will. Speaking of pick and grin, so here's a line that I stole from Ed Wing that wound up in one of my songs. Because Browser, as he is known, was trying to get Ed to, well, you're doing that old Taylor thing. You need to get you a Martin. And Ed said immediately back, well, I don't play a lot of parking lot picking fests. And that stuck.
That's a good one.
And it's one of the greatest comebacks I've ever heard in my entire life.
To a parking lot near you.
Yeah. But I mean, and sadly, most of the stories that Klein will tell you, you really can't. You can record them, but you can't play them. Some of those.
The names have been changed. We'll have to change all the names.
Yeah.
I've heard
then
a lot of them.
and then they boo boo, and then so and so boo, and
fuck them.
Yeah, well,
what are they gonna do? Unmonetize us?
That's right. Demonetize us. Yeah.
Ain't nobody ever monetized me to begin with,
man.
Yeah, demonetized. Excuse me.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Getting monetized. It was like, is that got to do with a prod or something?
Yeah.
Like hooked to a car battery?
I've never been lucky.
Yeah. Oh, well. No, we all been real lucky.
Yes.
We wound up here with each other.
Absolutely. No, I agree.
And on that note, thank you so much for having me.
Man, you're welcome.
I've spewed bullshit for.
Well, I wanted to know. I mean,
I'm
like
a big
I said,
fan of spare time theater. Yeah.
Well, like I said, we crossed a few times, and we've known each other a long time, and the whole Rona and all that stuff. And I never.
Who's that guy? What's his deal?
Yeah, I never knew a lot of that stuff. I mean, I knew bits and pieces of what we had talked about from time to time. But yeah, no, I think it's good. And I think that's the one thing I learned out of the whole pandemic was if you had somebody on your mind, just call them.
Yeah.
Talk to them. It was time to do that.
Check in.
Yeah.
Check in with that checkup from the neck up and see how it's going. And
because you just never knew.
Yeah. I made a number of them calls.
Yeah, I did too. And probably should have made more. But yeah, I made a bunch of those. So we'll have to.
And I hope we are on the back half of the hump of that madness.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. I don't know. Who the fuck knows anything these days?
No.
About anything.
No.
But yeah, it sure would be nice to. I know it's been a lot nicer just being able. I mean, I'm doing a band show a month and a solo show a month, and I mean, there was 3 years there. I did 2 shows the entire 3 fucking years. You know, they were both Christmas, and that was fucking weird, really weird. Of course. You know, in all honesty, I don't know if I really even cared or if I wanted to do anything because I was every single second was taken up by something else.
Right.
You know, so, you know, really singing another song wasn't really high on my list.
Right.
You know, and,
well, hey, folks, we're doing me and Michael we're available. If you need side meets, holler.
That's right.
I'm in my post retirement gloaming. So if you want me to wreck a gig, I'm your guy.
All right.
See you. Bye.
See you. Bye.
Either is or you ain't. You do or you don't. You can or you can't, or you will or you won't. Either way, baby, a good man, well, he's hard to find.